Okay, so we should be live streaming, and I'll hit record. Okay. I'll make Jennifer Greenblatt first. All right. All right. Well, we have enough council members for a quorum here, so we can start our meeting. Thank you, everybody, for showing up to our Community Education Council District 2 Working Business Meeting for January 2022. And I just have to, before we do roll call, I just have to let everyone know that this meeting is being recorded and it's also being live streamed to YouTube. But we thank you for being here as well. And just note that we don't have a public speaking session. So I know there are a number of members of the public here today, and I'm glad you're here. It's an honor to serve our community, our students and teachers of District 2. And with that, I ask Janie, council member, can you please do our roll call? Thank you.
Yes. Okay, I'm taking attendance for the working business meeting. Robin Broshi.
Here.
Kaushik Das. Daniela.
Here.
Lupe Hernandez.
Here.
Robin Kelleher.
Here.
Benjamin Morton.
Here.
Ms. Chen Kwok. Okay, I'll come back. Ushma Neal.
Here.
I'm here. Limpang Sim. Leonard Silverman.
Was here.
Yeah, I'll come back. Lily Wu. Gabriela Calabia.
Here.
Okay, let me just go back. Do you see Kaushik Das?
He sent me a message earlier that he will be showing up.
Okay, no problem. I'll come back to him.
Yeah.
Do we see Chen?
He just entered.
Okay. All right, Chen.
You should be
Okay.
able to respond now.
Okay, Chen Kwok. I'm just taking attendance.
Still connecting.
Okay, no worries. Do you see Leonard? I know he logged in earlier.
He just lost the internet. Yeah, he was here earlier.
Chen, I'm just taking attendance.
Aye, present.
Great, thank you. So we have enough members to proceed.
Great, thank you, Janie. All right, the first item or second item on the agenda is a liaison school updates. Do we have any liaison school updates? Yes, Robin.
I'd like to actually make a motion before we start to limit council members speaking to 3 minutes.
3 minutes. Does anyone second that motion?
I second it.
All right, so we have to
Vote.
take a vote.
Okay. Voting to limit council members speaking to 3 minutes. Robin Broshi,
Yeah. You don't
Kaushik
have
Das.
to do a roll call vote. You could just ask people to raise their hands. That will save another 3 minutes.
Okay, can you use the function to raise your hand so I can see it? So. Okay, the motion passes. And then actually, can I go through the timer feature now that we have that?
Good timing.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so you can see blue sky timer. What this is a new timer feature. Basically, it's a countdown. There will be 2 warnings. You'll get a warning time in 10 seconds, which is a gentle ring. There will be an alert time, which is a ringing bell in 5 seconds. You won't get cut off as a speaker. The time will go into negative time just to notate how much you've gone over by 3. Just a way of helping keep time check with, without being too obstructive.
All right, I believe, Janie, I believe Leonard Silverman is joining.
Okay, Leonard, I'm going to go back to attendance. Leonard, you're there, right? I see you. Oh, you're on mute. Is he?
I know he's having internet problems. He looks frozen. Len, can you give us a thumbs up? You're. We lost him again. All right, let's just proceed then. All right. Does anyone have, do any council members have liaison updates? All right, Ushma, you had your hand up first.
Sure. This is just one where I actually want to really give the shout out to Janie. I'm the liaison for Baruch, but we both have kids there. And Janie has taken a very active role on the SLT and with the Baruch community. And she did a really beautiful thing. They found a lot of stuff in the basement of Baruch that is currently being donated, a lot of new clothing and supplies and things to the one shelter that remains in District 2. So shout out to Janie and also to the Baruch community.
Janie, did you want to respond?
No, that was, it was an opportunity. There were also tons of books there. We packed up the books to send to a Title I school on the Lower East Side. So really just taking the opportunity to see what the school had, where it can be placed so things don't go to waste.
Great. Robin Keller, you had your hand up.
Yes, this is an update and a concern. I had the Principal Cindy from PS33 reach out to me today. I had no idea, but currently they are operating with 1 security guard, and that has been the case since October. We used to have 2 security guards. This happened during the vaccine mandate. They pulled one of the security guards to go to another elementary school that lost 2 security guards in the process because they didn't want to get vaccinated. And the principal was told it'd be temporary. And apparently she's heard no word since, and they haven't received another security guard to replace this particular security guard. She also told me this is the case at all elementary schools. I checked in with PS89. They have a similar situation, and they're very worried. I checked in with 234. They're also operating with 1 security guard. So this is a plea from the principals to please return the 2nd security guard. It's a safety hazard. I know at 33, these 2 security guards were always very active. Now more so than ever, considering the rising crime rates in the city, and the principals don't feel safe. And I actually was really shocked to hear this. I think it's a much bigger issue than we're even even mentioning it gives it credit for. I think it's something that needs to be escalated immediately. Cindy, I think Cindy did say she thought Kelly was aware of it. I spoke to Eric Botcher today, but I'm going to immediately start raising the alarm as much as I can. So I want to let everyone know that, because I think that's awful that elementary schools feel like they don't have the safety guards they need, and they can't properly cover both entrances and exits, or in some cases we have 3 exits at dismissal, and they have staff members during one point in the day, 30 minutes covering the front door to the school on 26th and 9th. So I think that's definitely a cause for alarm. But I mentioned it tonight. I don't know if anyone wants to respond to it, but I definitely plan to be addressing this in the future with other people I can get in touch with. So.
All right, well, it's very surprising. I was not aware of this issue myself. Daniela, you had your hand raised before. All right. Jennifer Greenblatt, is there someone or Kelly that we could speak to in the DOE regarding security? Because this isn't an issue that we.
Kelly, you want me to take it?
Sure, go ahead.
So we could talk to the borough safety director and see what's going on. Just a point of clarification, they're safety agents. If you call them security guards, they get very insulted.
My apologies.
No, it's okay. It's all right. So we can check into it. I'll check into it tomorrow and see what the situation is. My guess is that there's just a shortage, and that's the reason why. But I will let you know.
Jennifer, can I ask a question? Is it possible, or can you ask if it's possible in the short term to, since they still currently are, I guess, employed by the police department, is it possible to get someone from that department to fill in the short term until it's no longer a staffing issue? I believe that high schools are in an okay position, but elementary schools, which do need the protection and do need to monitor who comes in and who comes out, them not having the necessary amount of people is a really big deal, and ordinary staff are not trained to handle that.
Right. I mean, they usually move them around based on the number of incidents in the school. So they'll take them out of a school that has been safer and adjust them that way. But let me get the information tomorrow. I don't want to speak on behalf of.
33 is not one of those schools, though. It doesn't have a record for being particularly immune to anything.
I know what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, so unless there are any more liaison updates, I know, I believe Kushik Das just joined us. Just one sec, I'm making him a co-host. Councilmember Das, if you have any liaison updates, because we're just doing that agenda item, otherwise we'll just move on.
I do not, except for one that I think is going to come up later anyway.
Okay, all right, thank you. The next agenda item is the capital planning, capital improvement request submissions that we have submitted. It was submitted to their deadline, the school construction authority. Unfortunately, we only had maybe, I'm not sure how many of the schools, but there were a number of schools that were not in the February capital for the February amendment, in time for the February amendment that will be submitted to the New York City Council. The school construction authority will take on any other requests, improvement requests from schools for the November amendment. That said, council members, I know it was very difficult for many principals and to do to collate, to compile all these requests. But I would appreciate if we can continue to update the spreadsheets, our local spreadsheets, so that I can submit it to the School Construction Authority. Please, when you do submit, notify me via email that you've made a submission that I can then forward. And I'd like to give it an opportunity to every school to have a request submitted. I know some New York City Council members have also submitted, their deadline was last Wednesday, and there might be some crossover. Maybe contact your local New York City Council members that to find out what they've submitted. But you know, it's I know the principals are overwhelmed, but let's do this for the students, for the schools. Okay, so the next item is the district planning discussion regarding the district data appendices spreadsheet. I don't know if council members received it. I did forward it. It has some fantastic data there. Kelly, you were on in that meeting. Can you just speak to it for a moment so that council members know what they can find in that data, so that it's a useful tool and that they should be aware of?
Sure. Basically, it's a breakdown of the utilization rates of all of the schools in our district. It gives us information about space that is available both for teaching classrooms as well as office and other spaces. And so it provides kind of a good overview of what space currently looks like in our district.
Yes, I'll resend that again to all council members, but it's a tool. Since we don't have enrollment yet, you know, it'll provide back years that you can then be able to make an analysis towards, I guess. All right. The next item. All right. And are there any requests for correspondence or public notices? Are any committees planning to have a meeting in the next few weeks where we have to do a public notice? No.
Does this include the letter that's, I believe, already on the agenda?
No, that's coming up next. Yeah.
Fine.
All right. All right. I guess there's no requests for that. All right. Yes.
Can I just ask a question about the tool that you mentioned? I was just trying to go back to the emails and see, but is that a Excel spreadsheet that we should receive? Oh, okay. Okay, I'll make sure that I find it. And just one thing on the enrollment, I know that NICED just posted like 2 days ago on January 24th, district enrollment data. And so I think now we have, but I looked and I could not find by school and nor by grade. And so I'm just wondering if again, would be possible for us to get for our district enrollment by grade and by school. It seems that now we have for the district, but we still don't have for by school and by grade.
I guess that's another request we'll have to make, Daniela. Thank you. Kushik Das, do you want to discuss the submitted, the requested letter to Chancellor David Banks?
I was going to let Robin present if she wants.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know. I think for the most part, I think it's self-explanatory. But go ahead, Robin.
What's the letter that we have written to David Banks, Chancellor Banks?
Yes.
About admissions? It was available for everyone to read. I don't know if you'd like me to read it, but if not, we're here for questions.
I just posted the link in the chat.
Do people want it read?
Read into the record? I don't think any of us need that,
No.
in my opinion.
I don't need to do it. It basically, I mean, if we want to summarize, it basically points to resolutions that we've already passed, and it's specific to middle school admissions. And basically says that we would still like it, like some of the recommendations we made in the most recent resolution to be considered.
All right,
I do think we should vote on it.
Yeah.
But
are you making a motion?
Can I,
Michael, go ahead.
A second.
All right,
Trying to escape, so.
Janie, if
Not have to.
you could take a vote.
Yes, hang on. Okay, we're voting on the letter to Chancellor Banks. Robin Broshi,
No.
Kaushik Das,
Yes.
Daniela,
yes,
Lupe Hernandez,
No.
Robin Kelleher,
Yes.
Chen Kwok,
Yes.
Benjamin Morton,
Yes.
Ushma Neal,
No.
Lim Fong Sim, yes. Leonard Silverman,
Yes.
Lily Wu. Oh, you need to make, yes, okay. Gabriela Calabia,
Abstain.
abstain, okay. The motion passes.
Okay, item, so it's passed and adopted. Approved, actually. All right, item 6, resolutions and or letters in development. Are there any resolutions or letters in development that council members would like to discuss? All right. We had at our last calendar meeting a discussion on letter writing rules. Were there any changes or items that from the last meeting that the council members wanted to discuss regarding the letter writing rules?
The one thing where we need to come to consensus is how we sign these letters, whether it be over people's individual names or over the CEC.
Yeah, and I think there were additional tweaks. I apologize for not changing this earlier.
I recall there being more. There were several objections to limiting to 3 people as well.
Yeah, so I think the limiting of 3 people was an open item, and then there was something that we wanted to copy, a bullet point in option. Hang on. I think the second bullet point in option 1 can also be moved, it can be copied and included in option 2.
Could you share your screen if you're going to be discussing the actual letter?
Or Janie, do you want to review this? You know, before our next calendar meeting?
I think what we were, what I was going to do along with Ushma is basically do another turn of the document based on the discussions we had at the prior meeting, and then circulate that for discussion at the next meeting. That way we all see the black line or red line, because right now I'm just going from memory, and I didn't have time to make the changes for this meeting, but I have notes from what were some of the discussion points from the last meeting. So if there are no objections, I think that's probably best use of people's time. Although it leaves us with what to do about the current letter, given that we don't have agreed upon procedures.
Well, I think the only thing to embellish on that, and I agree, and Janie should not be the only one falling on that sword. I didn't do anything either, and it's not solely your responsibility. But I think if we all could come to a consensus on the way that we sign things and allow people to voice their opinions on that right now, we could kind of kill two birds with that stone around what do we do about the letter that was just approved, as well as which option do we then move forward in the next iteration that we discuss of these. While I am unmuted and have the floor, I still think it is strong. My personal preference is to not sign a letter that I don't agree with. So I do not like the letters to be signed over CECD2 if it's not unanimous. If it's unanimous, I think that sends a very strong signal that we are all united and aligned on something. And for the occasions in which we are sending something that might be a recommendation or an opinion, to know that it's not shared by all can also send a message.
Glenn, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I have to disagree with that only because if you look at our bylaws, it's pretty straightforward that when 6 of us agree on something, we do speak as a council. And I understand the differences between, let's say, a resolution and a letter, but I do think that our authority here stems from 6 people. And I think that if we have those 6 people, regardless of whatever issue that is on, I think that we speak as a council. And I agree with you that you shouldn't be forced to individually sign anything that you don't agree with. But I do think it should go out on as, District 2 CEC letter. Now, if that's not individually signed, that's fine. But again, we speak as the council when a majority of us coalesce around a specific issue. And whether I agree with it or not, it's the same. I think that the same rules should apply. The letters, resolutions, we need to be consistent.
May I make a short response?
Oh, sure, I don't mind.
Which is that, if something gets approved, it goes out on the letterhead and it goes out over the names of at least 6 people. So it will look like it is a voice of a council if it does get that approval. But I think some of the letters that we have sent do express strong views. And I mean, I'm not saying anything that isn't obvious, that this council has some very divergent opinions on it. And so it still represents the voice of the council if it goes out on letterhead, but without everybody's signatures.
I'm going to make a motion to vote on this. And
Second. Oh, sorry, Lupe put her hand up though.
I thought we were still discussing. Can we at least have a chance for everyone to discuss before we motion to vote?
well,
You
the
can
motion already.
make a motion, but you need to be clearer in the motion. And
Yeah,
then
I was
you
just
have
about to say, I
discussion.
don't know what this motion is for. So
Yeah,
can
well,
someone-
it
You need
happened
to
really
make a
fast.
motion, then you have discussion, then you call the question, then you vote.
Thank
No.
you.
The motion
Well-
I was about to make was to vote on that a majority, if a letter gets approved, that it goes out with CEC, with the CEC name to it, and not a requirement of individual council members to be signed by individual council members.
Second.
Sorry, that wasn't so clear.
Wait, before, okay, you were about to make a motion, but you didn't make the motion yet. So how about maybe we let Lupe say her piece and then,
Well,
or
we discussed the motion then, and that's what Jennifer Greenblatt just said.
She
So
said
now Lupe can.
I wanted to discuss what we were discussing prior to even the vote.
You need a second on the motion before you discuss it.
But we were discussing something
second.
prior to the motion of the vote. Prior to motioning, it was said that we were all going to discuss this.
So couldn't
caveat to the
someone,
letter.
who made the motion? Can the person who made
I
the
made,
motion
I made the
withdraw-
motion. Is there a second on the
No,
motion?
no, no. Or Ben, why don't you politely, as a just show of respect, withdraw your motion so Lupe could say her piece because she didn't understand that.
But now
that
we
was going to be the end of the
motion.
discussion.
We can discuss motion. And then
No,
vote
but
on
why,
it.
you could just
Can we
withdraw
speak
the
when
motion and
recognized?
let Lupe
Please don't
say
speak
her
without being
thing.
recognized.
Why wouldn't you just let Lupe say her piece?
Lupe, do you want to discuss the motion?
Not the motion. I wanted to discuss what we were speaking about prior to you raising a motion. I just feel that before we rush to make motions to vote on things that not everyone in the council has had an opportunity to discuss seems a bit rushed to me. I feel like that every person should have an opportunity to speak. And then you get to the point of, motioning to vote on what is going to be decided.
Okay, this topic was also discussed at the last meeting too.
And we
So Ben,
put it-
you're on the record as saying you're not going to withdraw your motion and Lupe doesn't get to say her piece. That's fine.
Well, point of what I think Lupe's point actually does go to the motion itself. And I think that's what we'll vote on, but I think that should be part of the discussion on the motion. And she may have valid points that maybe this motion shouldn't have been made, or that's up to her. But I think Lupe's going to get a chance to speak, Rob, and it's just a question of, is she speak before or after the motion's been made, it's been seconded, and that's the order.
But she wanted to speak before on the merits of the issue, not
may well
on
have
whether
wanted
to
to
vote on it.
Robin, she may have wanted to do that, but Ben
I
didn't recognize
understand,
it.
Len, and
Ben didn't
Ben has
Can
the
we
power to
speak when
withdraw
recognized?
his
Will you stop speaking out of
motion
turn?
and just let her
You haven't
speak.
been recognized, Bob Roshi.
Neither have you,
Not the member.
Shan.
Okay.
Neither have you. Neither
we'll
has
stop
Len.
talking, yeah.
No
All right,
one has.
everyone.
And the chair is the person that can bring the
Okay.
point of order, and also
Lupe, please stop. Janie, can you please put on the timer? Because we all agreed to having a timer at the beginning of the meeting.
I just want to finish my point. All I'm saying is that the motion was called. It was seconded. Ben didn't recognize Lupe. That's all. And that's all I'm saying. So it's just the order and in whether he should have or shouldn't have. I don't want to get involved, but I'm just saying that was
but
what
you're
was
the
done.
parliamentarian, Len. And as the chair, wouldn't it be respectful that we just said, Ushma said, let's discuss this as a council and make a decision? And rather than rushing to go for the motion automatically, why not ask the
Lupe,
council, is
Janie,
there
please
anyone
put the
that would like
timer.
to speak?
Thank you.
So are you withdrawing your motion?
No, I'm not withdrawing my motion. My motion has now been seconded twice, once by Ushma and then a second time by Robin Kelleher. Okay. And the motion speaks to the topic, so we can speak to the topic. Does anyone want to address the motion?
What are you doing, Nico?
Please, Lupe.
No, he's trying to grab snacks.
I'll wait for the timer to restart.
Oh, okay, hold on.
I don't want you to get it.
Okay, go.
I just want to remind the council that back in December at our working business meeting, this topic was raised and we discussed how both Janie and Ushma were going to be drafting the rules. But I will remind that a lot of you actually said, just based off goodwill, that it made sense to include the names of those council members that actually voted yes. I think Ushma made a great point where if it passes with 6 members, the letterhead speaks volumes, but the vast difference of some of these letters and the opinions of some of the council members, I feel it's extremely important that we at least reiterate who it is that is actually voted yes on the letters.
Janie, you had your hand up.
Yes. So my point of view is more technical. I don't see this as any different versus a resolution. I don't quite understand why you would have one set of rules for resolution, another set of rules for a letter.
Kush, when the timer's at reset, please.
I won't need 3 minutes, but yeah, I agree. Though we discussed this in the past, we did it out of goodwill because there was some disagreement. We didn't have rules that we're proceeding under. We did a goodwill. It was a temporary stopgap measure, and since then we've allowed it, but none of the majority of the council did not like it. We believe the letters are stronger with when we speak as a council. I agree with Janie that I don't see a distinction between a resolution and a letter. In fact, there should be a less formality, I think, in a letter, and therefore even less requirement. And even more so, most actions we take, though they don't come up very often, they're legally binding when the majority of us vote on something. It really doesn't matter if there's a minority dissension. So combining and rolling all that into one, I think when we sign, we should be signing as a council, as a majority. And I think this should go for future councils, regardless of what opinions have the majority.
All right.
Can someone just make me a co-host though? Sorry.
Sure. You're a co-host. You should be a co-host now. Daniela?
Can I ask a question? I just want to really understand what we are discussing. And so is the question if we're going to list all the names at the bottom of the letter? Or is the question if it's going to be written like the undersigned on top? Because I think that we should list just the people who agree with the letter, but I don't think it should be that language. I was very uncomfortable before saying like the undersigned of the letter. No, it's the council. If it is approved, it's a majority. It's a majority of the council members who are elected by our community. So there is no reason why it should not say represent the council. But I do think could be a compromise saying, just listing the council members who actually voted for that. So I don't know, maybe that's a solution that we can agree. And I don't know if my understanding of what is being proposed now, it's correct, so.
Janie?
Yeah, I'm going to respond to Danielle. Let me just start there. So I think what we're talking about is if 6 members vote yes for a letter, it will be signed CECD2. That's one option. The other option is that if it is voted by 6 members, then it's not signed just by CECD2. It's going to say undersigned by the 6 council members, because the ones who didn't vote for it do not want to be associated with the letter. And the concern is that if you just sign it as CECD2, they feel that it's a misrepresentation that they supported the letter. So that's kind of option 1 and option 2 from a big picture perspective.
Len?
Yeah, I don't want to, I think I said what I wanted to say before with regard to us speaking as a council, but I just want to make it absolutely clear tonight, because I see that some people are getting a little concerned about being heard tonight. I mean, everybody is getting heard tonight. Everybody who has a chance to speak on this. I understand people may not be happy with the order that we're speaking at, but I just want it to be clear to members of the public that no council member is not getting an opportunity to speak on these issues. So just want to throw that out there. You may not like the timing, but everyone's getting their 2 minutes and 30 seconds, whatever it is, to be heard.
Thank you, Len. Lupe, you have your hand raised.
I was just, can you please make me a co-host? I can't type in the chat. I was just going to let Daniela know. We decided on not using the verbiage, we the undersigned, at that December meeting that I was referring to when I brought up the fact that a lot of you said, based on goodwill, that you would allow the names to be listed, but if we got rid of we the undersigned. So I will just remind, that's not what we're discussing. I think you described it perfectly, exactly the way it was intended.
Chen, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, do we have that right up back? If 6 of us vote for a letter or resolution, it should carry the weight of the council. It should be on letterhead as an official letter, official resolution of the view of the council. We know we have disagreements. Our minutes, our record of votes hold it. We'll record the dissent. You can tell your constituents that you opposed something or supported something. But that's how, as I said last time, that's how the system works. We have a majority and the minority side may not like it, but we accept it because that's the job we signed up for. Now, whether you want to have people's names underneath it, I don't think it's necessary. I think we just say we have a list of all the members of the council members on the letterhead, and when we speak as a council, we speak as one council, as one voice. Perhaps I would grant that if it was unanimous, I think I said this last time too, it was completely unanimous, and we might opt to, that's an option, not a requirement, to sign our names, as well. But I don't think that's a requirement, and we may not even want to bring that up at this point. But minimally, if 6 votes have supported a resolution or a letter, it speaks with the voice of the council, regardless of the dissent and rigorous debate that went on behind it. Period. That's it. That's how we should do it. That's what we signed up for, and that's how our system works.
Thank you, Chen. Ushma?
Why don't you let Robin go, because I've spoken already. So I'll happily go after Robin.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see her.
Thank you. I will be brief. I just wanted to say, I wanted to agree with something that Chen said. We were elected to make as much difference as possible. And whether or not we like the decision that's made, we want strength. And there is strength coming from an entire council, and it's weakened to do it in any other way. And there will be times when we disagree and would rather go the other way, and there'll be times we'll be happy it's this way. But we do want to make a difference. We don't want to water down our role here and our CEC. So I do support having it come as CEC District 2 and come as an entity.
Thank you. Ushma,
Okay.
yes.
Very briefly, you don't need to start the timer. It will come out on letterhead. It will look like it is coming from the CEC. I very much valued and appreciated Daniela's suggestion that it is signed over the CEC, but then with the names of the people who want to sign it. I think that that's an absolutely excellent. It's an absolutely excellent alternative here, which is that it looks like it comes from the CEC, but there is also the option to list the names. And I know I'm fighting a losing battle here. That's the last I'll say of it. And I do think that we should probably move forward with voting on this just to move on, or we will be here till 11 o'clock again.
I do want to note that letters from CECD2 in the past did go out as a CECD2 letter in previous terms. So there has been a mix of both. So, but it has also gone out as either the president or the CECD2, or there has been a mix. And I don't, in the previous term, I don't recall ever being requested how the letter should go out. So, there's been more transparency during this council in this regards. And all right, I'd like to move forward now with the vote.
Can I just embellish that 1 second? Because Janie and I spent a lot of time looking at that correspondence and the things that went out. There were several requests that were made just on behalf of the president. Then there were letters that of condolence that went out over everything, but most of the letters were signed just by the people who agreed. But I totally agree with you. There were not nearly as many as we have done currently.
All right, Janie, I know you're working very hard today. So first, thank you for all the work you're doing.
Oh, no worries. Okay, so are we ready to vote?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we're voting on the motion that a majority vote results in a single signatory of CECD2. Robin Broshi, yay, nay, or abstain? Robin Broshi?
No.
Kaushik Das? Kaushik, Kush, are you there?
Apologies, muted. Yes.
Yes, okay. Daniela?
No.
Lupe Hernandez?
No.
Robin Kelleher?
Yes.
Benjamin Morden?
Yes.
Ushma Neal?
No.
Lim Fong Sim, yes. Leonard Silverman?
Yes.
You forgot me.
Yeah, sorry, I just my
Can you
spread
repeat what we're
device.
voting for?
Excuse me?
Can you repeat what we're voting?
Yes, we are voting for, so a majority vote on a letter results in a single signatory of CECD2.
Yes.
Yes, okay. So let me just review. So Chen is yes, Ben Morden is yes, Ushma Neal's no, Lim Fong Sim is yes, Leonard Silverman is yes, Lily Wu,
Yes.
Gabriela Calabia.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes with more than 6 council votes.
Thank you, Janie. Okay. The next item is a technical issue. There was a recent resolution submitted to me. Previous resolutions can be submitted at any time. That's not the issue. The issue is how agenda items move on to onto the agenda. Right now, we have in our bylaws that it can't be submitted prior to 7 days before a calendar meeting, and I also presume a working business meeting. And specifically for resolution, it can't be submitted. It has to be submitted within 4 business days prior to a business calendar meeting. So what I find to be strange is that there's a 7-day rule, and I would like to create a form for all council members to submit items to be on to an agenda, and that would be time-stamped. It would be available for council members to review, and it would be a more open policy and transparent policy. But we also have a bylaws issue with it can't be submitted prior to 7 days. And I think that I'm not sure why that's there. Maybe because it's difficult to manage all the different requests until the final week of a week prior to a council. But at least I would like to have the form up there. The discussion of when a resolution is submitted or any item for the agenda prior to 7 days, I think that should be reviewed for a bylaws meeting. Len, yes?
So I think we're going to need to call a meeting of the bylaws committee, which I'll send out a doodle so you guys can all let me know, what your availability is. I'll send that out. But personally, I'm always in favor of more time rather than less time as being a requirement. As you know, and we've had people that have submitted things kind of in the last minute, not just this council, but the prior council, and I'm sure it happened even before that. And one of the biggest concerns that is always raised is the question of whether or not someone's gotten proper notice of what's being called for. And I just want to say that I understand there are certain times and certain scenarios where many of us feel like there's an urgency or there's an issue that comes up, but I'm very concerned when the council members, we don't have proper notice of something, and then it looks like someone's trying to squeeze something in at the very last minute. So I personally up for the longest possible period of time of notice. I don't think there's any reason why people can't, for the most part, come up with most of 95% absent an emergency of what we need to discuss, at least 7 days beforehand, so everybody can get a proper notice of what's being discussed. That's all I'm saying. Because one of the complaints and concerns that has been raised by different factions, regardless of whose side they are on, is the question of proper notice and timing. And I think we should err on making sure we give people as much time and as much notice, so nobody tries to drop something at the last minute and we're all doing mad scrambles to try to decide what we want to do and make amendments and things like that. That's just my 2 cents.
Thank you, Len. Robin Broshi, you had your hand up.
Yeah, Ben, can you clarify where you're coming from? Because my reading of the bylaws is, I am reading the bylaws and they say any council member may submit an item to be added to the agenda to the president up to 7 calendar days prior to the meeting. And then beneath that, there's a bullet point. So that's just any agenda item, right?
Yes. Yep.
And then resolutions may be submitted to the agenda if 3 members of the council have submitted such item to the president and the AA at least 3 working days before the calendar meeting. So I don't know. So to me, that says, like, I could say, hey, let's have a presentation in May. Can we do that? And that's fine because it's up to 7 days. It's not, I don't understand where you're coming from. And same with the resolution. If three council members want to submit a resolution, like, and so right now it's January and they want the resolution to be in April. I don't know why, because they want to they want to have lots of opportunity for members of the public to come to calendar meetings and give comments and get feedback and update the resolution. To me, that seems within the spirit of, within the letter of the current bylaws and within the spirit of how I really do mean it, like all of us want to solicit feedback. And Ben, you just referred to sort of how prior councils handled the letter issue, and it was inconsistent, which I acknowledge, but I'm just saying, to the extent to which we want to listen to how prior councils operated, and we may not want to, but to the extent we do, you look at something like a zoning proposal, that's a resolution you might want to write, definitely want to write 2 or 3 months in advance to get feedback from the community about whether these zoning lines are acceptable. And frankly, I see all of that within the context of the current bylaws as they are written. And to Len's point about, sort of the historical issues have been about stuff coming in at the last minute. So to the extent that this is a dialogue, I would love for you to clarify what your concern is, because I actually don't understand it based on how the bylaws are currently written.
Okay, I'd like to respond. First of all, I'm not speaking to resolutions. Resolutions can be submitted at any time. It's not about the resolutions. It's about going to be having resolutions or any item on the agenda. And right now, as I read it, maybe Jennifer Greenblatt, you can weigh in on that. It says that their agenda items can't have to be submitted within 7 days.
It says up to 7 days.
Right. So it can't, the 8th day wouldn't work. Not the 9th day wouldn't work.
No. That's not, it means, no, Ben, that doesn't make any sense. It means within, you want to get the you want to ask for, request an item to be added to the agenda, not after, it can't be 6 days before. It has to be.
Well, I was looking for clarity on that.
She's correct. It has to be a minimum of 7 days. It can't be 6, it can't be 5, can't be less than that. It has to be at least, or maybe the wording should change if it is confusing, and say at least 7 days.
And that's the way I read
Then
it.
you confer?
I confer, I agree with it. That's the way I see it.
So then we cannot put any agenda items that come up, like today, there's a lot of items came up regarding G&T by Chancellor David Banks. We can't put that on the agenda.
Anything can be added with 6 votes. So if you want to, as president, Ben, you can put out frankly, in my opinion, Ben, you can just make the agenda, and you can even make it up until a day before. But in the interest of total transparency, my reading of the bylaws is that if it happens after 7 days, you should get 6 votes to change and to add something to the agenda.
You mean within 7 days, Robin, don't you?
If it happens after if it happens less than a week before the meeting.
Within 7 days, not
yeah. But Ben, I know we're often at loggerheads, but you are the president of this council. You got the vote of the majority of the people on this council. I think you have to ask yourself, like, if you put something on the agenda, are 6 people within 6 days, are 6 people going to vote against that amendment? And I do think that this is like, when we vote for you as president of the council, we are kind of deferring to you to use your good judgment about what to add to the agenda. And if people are really upset about it, then they can make a motion to change it. And it would require 6 votes to remove something from the agenda after, that window.
Okay, great. Thank you. Kush, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I guess we can hash this out in the bylaws committee, but I slightly disagree with Len. I think 7 days is unnecessarily long. Stuff has been moving far quicker than that this year. Yes, I know that we have an obligation to bring things out to parents. Most parents I know don't look at it 7 days in advance of this meeting. I think they look at it 1 to 3 days, if that. Most I think look at it within 1 hour to 24 hours before. I think 7 is unnecessarily long for resolutions and agenda items. I do agree, though, that we're trusting you to come up with stuff, and it hasn't been a big issue. But yeah, I think I would vote for more flexibility rather than length of time and notice. I think it would be perfectly fine to put in a preliminary agenda 7 days out and keep modifying it all the way up until the day before.
Okay.
But that's just my view.
Janie, your hand up.
Just to administer this thing, anytime someone starts to speak, I'm going to put on the 3-minute timer. I just wanted to give people a heads up.
Chen?
Yeah, I actually agree with Robin Broshi, Councilmember Broshi, on that. The way it's read, 7 days, within 7 days, within 7 days, 7 days, up to 7 days for formal agenda. And I also agree, I don't know if it's in the bylaws, that if we have one is you as the president, or the president has the discretion of adding to the agenda, and we could make it a vote to add things in the last minute, or less than 7 days notice. I think there will be agenda items that need to be added. We need to have that flexibility. I also believe that we should, as principal, try to add things as early as possible to the agenda so that the public can see what we want to talk about, so they can see if they're interested, that they want to participate. And that's the whole purpose of our having more transparency and having more parent and family input. So I think if it's not in the bylaws, we should add it to the bylaw committee to give that option for the president to add with less than 7 days with a vote or some other procedure to get it on there.
Len, you're next.
No, I just want to point out something that I don't think people have picked up on. There's a distinction in the bylaws between calendar meetings, which is where public business or public is going to comment, and there's a distinction between business and working meetings. So calendar meetings are covered under 1.1. That is the specific section that talks about the 7 calendar days. And I'm going to assume, and it may be a common sense assumption, that the reason that 7 days was included is, as Robin Broshi pointed out, to give people from the public an opportunity to comment on things that are brought up with at least 7 days notice. And the public also has that 7 days notice in the calendar meeting agenda. But in the business working meetings agenda, it says that that's developed by the president. I'm reading from the bylaws. Following consultation with all members of the council, such agenda shall include the opportunity to raise issues for consideration under new business at each working business meeting. So I think my interpretation is that there's more flexibility for the working business meetings to bring things up, but there is deliberately a length of time that's been set up in the calendar meeting at section of the bylaws to allow for more time, more notice on certain issues. That's again, what I think that why there's a distinction between those two sections. I don't know if people agree, disagree, but that's the way I see it.
Robin Kelleher? Yes.
Thank you. I want to say thank you, Ben, for bringing this up, because while you are president, as Robin Broshi pointed out, I think it's very important that you are clarifying to all of us what the rules are, and that you're respecting that not everyone agrees, and that even though you do have the power as the president to put things on at the last minute, you're letting everyone know that you're doing so acknowledging everyone else's opinions, and that you're not just doing it assuming that you have 6 votes. And the wording, I understood it as it is, but I do agree it's a little bit unclear. So I appreciate you making it clear for everyone, not just us, but other people who might be reading the bylaws. So I'm glad that we had this discussion. I'm glad you brought it up, and I'm glad that you don't just put things on the agenda, and that you did bring it up here, even though you have the right to do so and the majority vote. So thank you for doing that and respecting everyone's opinions.
Thank you very much. Lupe?
I just, your question of, or why this was even on the agenda was confusing to me. And it clearly states that anything submitted up to 7 days should be added to the agenda. And I don't think, I just want to clarify with you to make sure you're not disputing any agenda item that is submitted to you as the president and the chair of the council to be added to the agenda prior to the 7 days, meaning if it is given to you today for a February 8th meeting, there should be no question on whether or not that should be added to the agenda. So I'm a bit confused as to why we're discussing this, because the bylaws are very clear in the sense that, and we've actually practiced, precedent has already, this has happened within our term, within our council, where members want to add things to the agenda, and it's very clear, and we've actually done so where somebody motions to add something to the agenda, and we take a vote, and if they get the votes, it's added. But I don't think it's right within that 7 days to unilaterally decide whether or not that should be added on your terms. So just to clarify, is this regarding within the 7 days to add something to an agenda? Because I'm quite confused on why we're discussing this.
To respond to one of your comments, what I'm looking to do is create a form so that all council members can submit. And for the first time, because I spent now 2.5 years on our council, and I find that the agenda has been tremendously opaque. And I want to be transparent, and I want to have all council members who are able to see the form, who are able to see the report of the form, and who can represent our community better. And that's why I'm bringing this up, because I want to take this debate and end it, and that we can all submit to the agenda and that we fully understand it. I may have misunderstood it, but I want to make sure it's not abused in the future. And I really want this to be transparent, and that's why I brought this up. And I'm extremely glad that we're going to move on with this and have a bylaws meeting and hammer this out, because our community absolutely needs to be engaged and absolutely needs to have access to the agenda. And that's why I'm bringing this up. And this has never been brought up in the 2 years previous to this. And I've been shocked about that. There's so much that has gone on behind the scenes. for removing council members, removing presidents behind the scenes. And that's really shameful. We're parents, we're volunteers. We have to help our community. We have to help our students in temporary housing. We have to help our students who don't get into their high schools and who've listed 12 schools. And so that's what I've been here for. And to say that I'm trying to prevent something from getting on the agenda is as far from what I'm trying to do. I'm absolutely for providing transparency for the agendas, and that's what I will work for. And if that's the one thing I do on this council, then I'm glad I did something right. And if I misunderstood, then I apologize. But I want to move forward and provide a system that works for everybody in our council. Thank you. Yes, Robin Broshi.
Okay, so everything you said just now was great. I agree. So what's I guess, so are we discussing whether there should be a Google form to submit recommendations for council discussion, right? I guess I'm echoing Lupe. So are you making what is the concrete proposal that you are making?
A form for all council members to access to submit agenda items to meetings.
And then what happens with that I'll give a concrete example that I think might have spurred this discussion. I said, hey, could we let PS11 students have a spot on the agenda to talk about the name change? And so when your form is in place, what does that look like? I fill out the form, you and the administrative assistant, when they are hired, get it. And then what happens?
No,
I know, you're making a really concrete, constructive proposal. I'm not challenging
no.
you.
You've taken this to another, to a different level. You submitted a resolution and then you wanted to put that on the agenda item.
That's not up for discussion. That's how our bylaws work. I thought the conversation was about how to add presentations and other topics.
No, those aren't agenda. The form is for agenda items.
But then I guess I'm not clear. So the bylaws are clear for resolutions. All you need are 3 co-sponsors. It goes on the agenda. There's no subjectivity there. And then to me, the subjectivity might be about other meeting agenda topics, like a presentation. I want to have a speaker. I want to have this person come. I want to present on my own thing, right? That's what the 7 days refers to. And and you're saying council members should have a form to fill out, and that's fine. I think that's great to formalize the process. But then what happens after, I guess I'm asking, what's the difference between emailing you and the AA, or excuse me, I don't want to personalize it. What's the difference between emailing the president and the AA 7 days in advance, up to 7 days in advance, to say, hey, I want to add this thing to the agenda? And then what happens? And how does the form streamline that and make it more transparent?
All right, I'm going to respond. And Broshi, Robin Broshi, that is the root of the problem. Because for the past 2 years that I've served, 2.5 years that I've served on the council, an email is not transparency. The other council members are not aware of what's been emailed or not. What I want to provide is access on all ends, where the council members are also seeing what's being put on the agenda and what to expect. And there may be iterations to continue to improve this. So let's be mindful of that. I mean, the things sometimes need improving.
I'm not challenging you. I'm just asking you to explain what happens after the submission.
All right, Danielle, you have your hand raised.
Yes, I want to make a comment and a suggestion. First, Ben, thank you so much. I think it's so important what you're doing in bringing transparency and making sure that everybody has access to see what is being put in the agenda. So I really appreciate your attempt to do that. My comment is, I want to go back to what Kirsch said, because I think I totally agree with him that like 7 days, it's too long. And I think we don't need the 7 days. And I think like my suggestion is for us to actually have a bylaws committee meeting, as Len mentioned, because I think this discussion is bringing some problems that maybe we're not even aware. Clearly the language was confusing because people had different interpretations. And so I think it would be good to have clear language for everybody, and to have something that, give whoever is the president, have some time to prepare the agenda and some predictability so the public has access, but at the same time allows us to, to really be responsive to our community and to what is happening at the time. And so we have a little bit more than 7 days.
Thank you, Daniela. Chen?
Yeah, yeah, I do want to say thank you, Ben, for bringing this up. I think you also wanted to clarify something in the bylaws that you didn't understand. So thank you for that, without making assumptions, forcing assumptions on us and bringing it to our attention. So I really appreciate that. But I also want to say, perhaps I can make a suggestion. Like, I think what Councilmember Brochu was bringing out was, can you describe the process? And I would even just start with, what problem are we trying to solve with your proposal of a form? And I think we all have run meetings and organized things in our different roles, that the typical problems, are you don't get the things in time, you get it hit bits and pieces here and there. It's either through a text or through email or through, whatever other, Slack or WhatsApp so let's put it all in one place. That's one. So you don't have to chase everything. So that's a workflow improvement, productivity. And then two, it's transparency, so that you're not getting side messages from somebody. Oh, I want to put this on the agenda. I don't want anybody else to know until it's too late. Or, or if you did want everybody to know, then you're not making it transparent enough. So either case, it's now a single place for everyone to put in their agenda suggestions, and for you to not go crazy chasing down different agendas. And you state it, give me your agenda items or hold your peace, right? And be fair to you, to give you time to prepare, and not at midnight, the day of the, 12:01 of the meeting day, and to be fair. And also be fair to our public, our families, to see what the agenda items will be, to give us enough time. So that speaks to the 7 days. Like I said before, I think 7 days is a reasonable notice period, but we have exceptions and we can vote on that, so that if it's something that is urgent or new, to have that flexibility. So I think we can handle all of that, and we can now, move the discussion into further discussion about the bylaws side of it into a bylaws meeting, and not take more time to discuss it further. But I think we all recognize that you have good intentions, and a lot of this, and all the suggestions are with good intentions. They all come from a good place. We're just trying to speak and however imperfect languages and expression is, to make each other understand. So I hope I'm trying to make it into put it all together to make it understandable for everyone. Hopefully I did that. Thanks.
Thank you, Chen. You did. Thank you. Janie, yes?
Yeah, so to echo what Chen is saying, it would be incredibly helpful to put together some sort of agreed upon procedures so we can just circulate it. I think we all have good intentions. We spent 30 minutes all hashing around ideas. I think it's not fair for the participants to sit here and listen to all of our, the think tank. I think we as a smaller group can put together a think tank, put together an outline, put together an agreed upon procedures, make that public, and streamline this whole conversation. I think the hearts of everybody on this council are in the right place. I think it's just the use of time is, I think it's not quite the right balance.
I agree with you, Janie. I am a little surprised that we've talked this long about agenda items, but maybe obviously there's a need for it, and I look forward to discussing it offline and in the bylaws meetings, and then hashing out a system that works. I'd like to, since I think a lot of us have, unless there's a new council member who'd like to bring up a point, I'd like to move on. Number 7, item number 7 was a resolution presentation process discussion. And this came about of the resolution for that Robin Broshi submitted regarding PS 11. And this had to do with having PS 11 students presenting, from what I understand, to the resolutions. Actually, I don't want to speak to it. I'd let Robin Broshi, what was the presentation that they, what presentation do they want to make, and at what point on a calendar meeting, at what agenda point do they want to make it at?
So this is, we set the agenda, it's our meeting. And obviously any member of the community, including our students, are entitled to 2 minutes during the public speaking process. I just thought, as a courtesy to a school in our community, as an opportunity to get students engaged, they had obviously been really engaged in the process themselves, to just make space at the top of the agenda so they don't have to stick around and listen to all the stuff. Give them, I don't know, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, give them a chance to show off their process, how they solicited feedback from other students, how they, from my memory of being a parent at PS 11, I assume they got to present to the PTA, they got to present to the SLT, and this is just another opportunity for, us to follow through on our commitment to, to get excellence for our students. And I think a prime example of way to model that is to just let our students present to us. So we can work out the details with Principal Bender about, how much time we allocate for them, but just for him to be able to give the students families notice to set aside this time, and this is the Zoom link, and you guys will have 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and I don't know, maybe they'll have slides, maybe they'll take turns, we can work that out. But I just thought that would be a great opportunity for some District 2 students to address, to be civically engaged and part of the community and part of government.
Thank you, Robin Broshi. I have to just point out one last thing. One other thing is that I initially had agreed to it, then I realized that it was a unilateral decision, and that there might be some bylaw issues about the order of the presentation. So I wanted to give the opportunity to council members to understand the request and to weigh in on how we should proceed on a change in the order of a meeting it's governed by our bylaws. Len, you have your hand raised.
Yes. So I'm not really understanding. So I mean, is the discussion about having students actually make the presentation of the resolution? Because again, I understand that in many respects, Robin's correct. It would be a great, civics lesson and everything. But number one, there's no official mechanism for that. And number two, it would also be great. Students would get a civics lesson if they commented during the public session, during the time period that they would be allowed to sign up. Students can sign up as members of the public, and they could certainly be heard in that forum as well. My only concern here is if we're advocating, again, having students make presentations, which I don't see how there's anything that provides for that. My question is, what precedent are we setting? And does that mean, now we're going to have parents make presentations? I know we not too long ago had an application for 2 parents, for example, to speak, I think, on the dual language issue that came up, or some resolution there. And I certainly voted against that. I don't think that's, I think I voted against it. I don't think that's a good precedent to set. So I just want to get clarification on that. And again, I don't see the mechanism being there unless, you know, I mean, my understanding is resolutions are presented by council members, not members of the public. Maybe Robin, I'll defer to, I'm sorry, maybe Jennifer, if you want to have any thoughts on this as well, I'd like to hear from you. I don't mean to put you on the spot.
I have a thought. I'm not commenting on whether a student should present or not at the council. There is this process for a name change. It's under Chancellor's Regulation A 860. There is no resolution necessary for that. It's done in this way by March 1st of a particular year to change it for the following year. So if you did it March 1st, 2022, it would be for September 2023. The principal has to agree to it. It goes through the PTA. There need to be minutes from the PTA that are approved and then sent to the superintendent. There also needs to be general public notice so anybody can comment on it. The superintendent then goes to the CEC, and there's a calendar meeting in which parents or the community can comment on it as well. And then the superintendent sends the principal approval, the PTA minutes, his recommendation, and the CEC calendar meeting minutes, including a recommendation and a vote to face for it to be approved. But all this needs to be done by March 1st. You don't need a resolution. I mean, you can do one if you want, but you don't need one. It's not necessary.
And thank you for that, Jennifer.
You're welcome.
Robin Broshi, you have your hand up.
Yeah, so I mean, historically as a CEC, we've had all kinds of presentations. Some of them are bound by our obligations to, you know, like to do this let fair student funding present or whatever it is. But as a CEC, we can let anyone we want do a little presentation. We can stick it anywhere in the agenda. Again, the bylaws make it clear that the agenda is subject to change. I thought it would be nice to let some students in the community give a short, I don't know, I said 10 minutes, I said 15 minutes, maybe it's 7 minutes, presentation to the council so that we're actually interacting with the people that we're here to serve. I have no problem if there's a slippery slope, and that means that students from other schools get to request to make presentations. I doubt that's going to become a chronic issue where our meetings get taken up by student presentations. If it does, we can reevaluate. But hey, if you guys don't want to make time for students to present to us, that's your prerogative. I guess you can vote against doing that, and that's fine for you. I'm happy to report that back to the community.
Daniela, you have your hand raised.
Yes. Well, first I want to address what Robin just said. I don't appreciate your tone, how you were saying, yes, you don't want to let students. I think we're having a very fair and honest discussion. And I do think this is slippery slope because I can totally see now middle school students coming here and say, you know, I'm not being served. And then I remember in one of the first meetings we had, the parents for the French school wanted to present, and I remember Ushma alerting us, this is going to create a precedent that it is dangerous. And we already received so many complaints of our families that our meetings go so long. I do think we need to use discretion, and I don't want to say no to these students and then, you know, have to, or say yes to these students and then have to say no to others. I do think that our job as council members is to present the resolutions. Everybody can then speak on the public comment, and you know, we could all agree to be very short at that meeting and make sure that they do not go very late, so they have an opportunity to speak. And also, I really am concerned about how the tone is being of this conversation. We have the prerogative, of course, of inviting people to the presentations, but I think that if we're now going to invite everybody who is proposing a resolution to present a resolution, I do think it opens as slippery slope. And I mean, our community is so active. We receive so many mails. I bet you that's going to be 5 groups of parents wanting to present resolutions at the next meeting.
Thank you, Daniela. Lupe, you have your hand raised.
I've been attending CEC meetings for many, many years. I've seen some really great presentations at our CEC meetings, and some that tied to resolutions. I can't recall whether the person presented the actual resolution, but I do recall a presentation taking place maybe a month prior to the vote of a resolution. The resolution was available for the public to see, and this was regarding the science behind reading. And there was an excellent presentation that was available that provided a lot of information to me as the public as well as others. And students being engaged, I think this is something that I can't even believe that this has become a debate. It kind of piggybacks on the reason why that topic previous to this one was on our agenda, and why I was questioning Ben's question of, he had said it's fine to present, and then all of a sudden decided, and as the president, as the chair, he makes the agenda. I've never once been consulted as a council member as to what has been put on our agenda or what presentations we've had. And I don't know the previous terms, but this goes to, I'd asked in the chat, and what I asked to Ben during my public speaking time prior was just to clarify, something being submitted up to 7 days before the 7th day, it automatically gets added to the agenda. Why would this presentation now all of a sudden have to be debated and voted on? And I don't think that students presenting something that they worked really hard on and that they feel very passionate about, that is not, I don't see why somebody would be against them changing their name. As Jennifer Greenblatt has poignantly pointed out, it is not required to pass this resolution, is not required to get passed by our council, but it is a process that these kids are learning to be more engaged and involved in civic duty. So I don't see why we would. And again, she specifically asked, we can limit their time limit. I think the length of our meetings, we've spent 30-40 minutes on this topic alone, and then we're debating whether or not to give kids 15 minutes time to share what a process that they enjoy taking part in.
Len, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I think there are 2 issues that that for me have just come up. One issue is with, as Jennifer Greenblatt pointed out before, whether it's appropriate, if there is an alternative process that is the correct process to follow for this, whether or not a presentation is in front of the CC is the appropriate forum for these issues to be raised on this particular issue. So let me just say that. Number 2, I really do not, as Daniela said, I don't appreciate the weaponization or the discussion saying that you can vote against children if you want to, or I'll go back to the community and tell them that you guys said no. You know, that's weaponizing this, and that creates distrust. That really just adds to the tension. It's unnecessary to say things like that, because, you know, we try to collaborate, we try to get along. And when somebody turns around and says, well, you're not letting the children speak, that's not what we're objecting to. We're objecting to the appropriateness of this under this circumstance. We're examining whether or not it creates a precedent, and whether it's an actual presentation unrelated to a resolution, that I guess might be under the discretion of the complete board and Ben as the president. But I would just say, I don't appreciate when we frame issues and try to cast each other as the bad guys, or try to stifle public opinion, or stifle children. That's just not right, and I don't appreciate that at all.
Thank you, Len. Robin Kelleher, you have your hand raised.
Yes, I do. There's a lot to unpack here. So yeah, thank you for the timer. First of all, this is the Education Council. So everything we do is about children. So I would say almost 99% of our resolutions would involve children who probably want to speak. So I don't think it's a slippery slope. I think it's like a wide open door that it's going to invite children to speak on every resolution. And I know that I'm in the process of working on a resolution about sibling priority for middle school, and I will have my children present. I would like to have them present if this is the new precedent. That's fine if we all decide on that, but we have to realize that this is will be a new norm. And I don't think it's fair, as Robin Broshi suggested, we can change it back afterward if we realize it's not working, because that would be allowing it for one resolution and then changing it back for the others. So I don't think it's a slippery slope. I think it's just an obvious change in the way we conduct meetings. It'll involve children presenting. I would love to hear children speak, and I invite them to the public session, and I think that's the appropriate time. And secondly, since I want to make sure I have the right time for this, we recently discussed D210. What you said, Robin Broshi, about you can vote against it and I'll go back and report to them, that felt like a threat, and I find that disgusting. That you would go back to the school, and Lupe, you're laughing at that, and that feels a little bit intimidating and really like uncomfortable too. That your response to a friendly conversation that we're having is to make smirks and threats to go back and tell your schools and the children that we're voting against allowing children to speak, because that is not the case, and that is changing our words, and that is starting a fight and creating an environment where parents feel threatened. I feel threatened by that comment. I'll tell you right now. And I am saying that on the record in front of Jennifer Greenblatt and Kelly McGuire. I feel threatened that you are suggesting that if I vote not to have children present, that you'll go back and tell the school and the children. And I feel bothered that Lupe is smiling and nodding along with it. So for the record, can you please wait your turn? It's because I can't read your lips. I know you're saying something, Lupe. I think we need to stay on task. We need to discuss what matters. If we want to have different people present, I wanted to have people present for some resolutions that we spoke about. I wanted Fire at one point to present, and we decided that that wasn't how it worked. And I went along with it. I understand. I would have loved to hear Fire speak, and I didn't go back and say, Fire, no one wants to hear you speak. She comes to every meeting and sits there and listens. We worked together, and that was the same reason that I voted to have us all sign on together. We are one group. We shouldn't threaten each other.
Thank you, Robin.
Can I just say,
Janie?
I'm offended by that bell. That is a really horrific bell. Okay. That's
Sorry, I'll change it to a gentle chime then.
yeah, that's much better. I mean, that's like, geez.
It works.
Okay, is it me? I'm going to start the timer.
Yes. That's true.
Okay, I didn't hear any council members say that they didn't want to give the children the opportunity to speak. Just for clarity, I did not hear that. Secondly, from my perspective, I don't quite understand why we're seeking to change the paradigm of the way these meetings have been run with a public speaking session. I think we should hold every single council member accountable for limiting their time so the children have an opportunity to speak at the public speaking session at a reasonable hour. If we as adults can't speak within our allotted time and use the time efficiently so the kids don't end up having to, speak at the public speaking session at 10 p.m. at night, I think there is an issue.
Thank you, Janie. Kush, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I kind of agree with a lot of what Len, Robin, and Janie just said. I think the children absolutely should speak, and I think there is a venue for them to do so. I do recall that meeting where Ushma suggested that this sets a dangerous precedent, and I absolutely believe this does set a precedent. Robin mentioned her kids speaking for in regards to sibling priority. I have other parents that would line up to have their kids speak on that issue. And And I could think of 2 or 3 other resolutions I've already written where we could have had kids present. So it's not, and also I think there have been a variety of people that have presented in the past, but they usually have some official title or capacity. They're principals, they're heads of certain departments of the DOE. They have some standing to do so. Not that kids shouldn't be allowed this opportunity. It's just, I know this is a family meeting, but it's also a meeting run by adults, by elected officials, and there's a balance to be had. I also want to point out something very obvious. Whether or not we agree on this, I would also actually posit that the March meeting is not the best meeting to do it, especially if you wanted to do it at the top of the hour. I noticed it's later on the agenda item, but Chancellor Banks is going to be speaking at well, I think immediately before our calendar meeting. So that alone makes the start time uncertain. And on top of that, I was at the last meeting where the Chancellor spoke. You're going to have tons of parents lined up to speak on following up the Chancellor on whatever he has to say and what we say and when we ask him the questions. So that's another practical consideration to keep in mind, regardless of how we feel or vote on this particular matter.
Ushma, you have your hand raised?
Thanks, Ben. Just want to mention, when I said that was setting a dangerous precedent, that was in a working business meeting, not a calendar meeting. I just want to be very clear because everybody keeps invoking I said that. It's that we do not have people make presentations and nobody but council members and sometimes Jennifer Greenblatt or Kelly McGuire speak in our working business meetings. That is the point I was making. When it comes to our actual calendar meetings, I do think that there's room here for us to allow students to be able to have a small part of our meeting if that's who we're actually advocating for, and hearing from them every once in a while seems to me like a really good idea.
Are there any other comments, Kush? I just want to point out one thing. The request is for the February meeting, not for the March meeting.
Oh, and sorry, the request for the February meeting and Chancellor is speaking at the March meeting.
Yeah,
I have that incorrect. Apologies then. I can't. I'm sorry, Ushma, I can't disagree more. I think having kids present will open a floodgate of kids presenting some a wide range of topics, some of them very adult. And I think I'll be specific. I think there's one woman who's come to a variety of PEP and CEC meetings, not ours, who trots out her kid all the time, and I find it on the verge of distasteful. And it basically almost using her kid. And I don't want to see that happen here. I really don't. I know that this is probably not that, but you're gonna open a whole bunch of floodgates and people asking, can my kid do this? Can our students do this on a wide range of topics, and we're gonna be forced to vote on every single one, whether or not should be allowed or not allowed. I think we use the existing, I think it is questionable whether or not they're allowed to begin with. I agree with Glenn. Not clear in the bylaws. And I think there's an opportunity for them to speak, and they should avail themselves of it. If they want to be part of the civic process, that is the civic process that's set up, and they speak at the engagement session, and they get to speak at the top of the engagement session. And I think we usually allow flexibility and timing as well on how long they speak. I yield the rest of my time, though I hate that phrase.
Ushma, you had your hand raised first, and then Lupe.
Sure. My reactions are twofold. I don't think that was a particularly kind comment to make about a parent and her child who are using their opportunity to speak in public sessions. Second, I'm not saying that we should have multiple conversations from parents presenting or children presenting. But in the event that there is a group of parents or a group of kids that come to any of us as counselors, and we agree with them to the point that we are willing to put forward a resolution that speaks to an issue that they have brought up, that means that they have to have convinced some of us that something is reasonable to put forward as a resolution. In those cases, allowing public comment, and they are our public, and in fact, they are the public that we are focused on the most, seems to me to be a no-brainer.
Lupe?
We are here to serve the kids. And this is something, a resolution that I don't think is, again, I could be wrong, but I don't think this is a resolution that we're all going to disagree on, but it was something that the kids put together on their own. Very different than some of the resolutions we've seen being voted on in our term and in previous councils. But having them be able to have their time outside of a 2-minute sign up, again, it doesn't fall outside of what we should be doing when we're serving these kids. This is something that they did. I think we should be commemorating them, congratulating them, and giving them their time. And just since we're putting on the record what's offensive or what we feel threatened about, attacking a student, and this has happened in the past, attacking students, especially students with disability that come and speak, is horrendous. And I'm going to put that on the record. I don't think it's appropriate for any of us, especially a parent or a student that is not even in the meeting or has no capability to be able to respond to the type of things that you're accusing them of. This is very disrespectful and not decorum. And part of the reason why D210 was imposed.
Daniela, you have your hand raised.
Yes, I just want to quickly address what Ushma said, that if there are a group of parents that is so involved that convince one of us to put a resolution in place, and then we should give them time. I mean, I have never put a resolution in place that I have not discussed with families in our community, never. And I already have messages here of parents saying, I want my kid to present at the next meeting. And I know we're serving students, but at the same time, I agree with Chris, like, we are adults. My kid wants to come and present, and he has already rehearsed with me that he has a campaign against homework in his school. So I really think that we need to use, I'm not comparing to this, of course, but we need to use some judgment here and not just allow any group that it wants to come. And also the groups that want to come and have a dialogue with us and have put together a resolution, have convinced us, this is opening a floodgate. And I can guarantee you there's going to be 5 groups of parents and students at every single meeting. And we're going to have even more complaints that the meetings are going too long. So I don't see why we cannot just agree that we're going to be really brief at that meeting. And then we can prioritize the students. If there are 5, 10 students, we're going to put them first to speak. Each of them get 2 minutes. And then, we at least prevent this all these messages and emails like, I want my kid to present, or I want parents to present.
Robin Kelleher?
Ushma, you said when a group of parents or children come to you and ask to present, we should listen. I would love to listen to a group of parents and kids during the open meeting time. Once word gets out that a group of parents and children are presenting this resolution, I can promise you 100% that a group of parents, not a, but multiple groups of parents, will come to all of us and ask to present on sibling priority, on middle school admissions, on the high school situation. I mean, I saw high schoolers crying last year. And I'm in the process of writing the sibling priority for middle school. Gifted and talented, I know we're writing about that. We just sent a letter to Banks. All of those will have multiple groups of parents and children coming to us, asking to present after this meeting, if we allow parents and children to present for that particular resolution. And I agree we should listen to children and parents. And I think that's our job as liaisons to schools, to go to these schools and to listen to PTA meetings and to get all the information that we can and to come to these meetings and present for them. And if they want to speak and be powerfully heard, that's wonderful. And let them speak in the process that we have laid out for them so that we don't start something that we can't control and that we can't be fair about in the future.
Thank you, Robin. Len, yes?
Okay, couple things I want to talk about. Number one, I don't understand the point of a 3-minute timer if people are going to get to speak again and again and again. It really doesn't make much sense to me. That's number one. Number two, we are the elected representatives. I'm not familiar with any elected body, whether it's the Congress of the United States, the New York State Assembly, the New York City Council, where you're going to have people in the actual forum make presentations. I just don't see that. The whole point is that we are elected, as Robin said, to represent, as Robin Kelleher said, to represent constituent communities. There is a process, we've talked about it ad infinitum tonight, that whereby members of the public do have an opportunity to speak. To Lupe's point, in terms of being limited to 2 minutes, if 5 students speak with 2 minutes, that's 10 minutes of speaking time. If their parents speak, if each one has one parent speak, that's 20 minutes of speaking time on an issue. So I don't want to constantly have someone try to characterize us, and I think that's the narrative that's been played out tonight, as that there are some of us that are trying to stifle thought and stifle public speaking, because that's not what we're trying to do. There's a mechanism that's in place. Again, the question of whether or not this particular request is even appropriate, as Jennifer Greenblatt pointed out, given the process that's there. There are issues as to precedent. I am going to make a motion that we table the discussion of this this issue. I don't think we're really getting anywhere on it. I don't know, you know, or if there is a motion. I don't even know if there's even a motion at this point or something was made. But I'm going to make a motion to table the discussion on this. And I really don't appreciate, again, if that is used against council members, whether it's myself or anyone else, trying to say that we are stifling the public's ability to speak. Every single student in this district has an opportunity to speak, and I'm sure Ben would absolutely move the order of the agenda up to let students who might have bedtimes speak at any time that they if they have to speak earlier rather than. But here we are again, and I only got 45 seconds left, and we have wasted so much time tonight fighting between us, going back and forth on these issues. And anyone that is still listening, I don't know how many people are there because I can't see because I'm on my phone. Who knows? Again, we constantly waste time on these kind of discussions. Nobody is squashing anybody's due process. Nobody's squashing anybody's right to speak. It's whether something's appropriate or not. An issue shouldn't be used against other council members. It's not right.
There was a motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
Wait.
I'd like to discuss the motion. Len, just repeat. Can you repeat your motion again? You're
I'm just making a motion just to table the discussion of this particular issue to a future time.
Okay. I have one issue with regards to the motion. There was a request, and I can't respond to the request, and when I initially did, I realized I made a unilateral decision that actually would be in violation of the bylaws.
Then I withdraw my motion, and if anyone wants to make a motion that somehow addresses your particular issue, I'll defer to them. But I do think we've had a lot of discussion on this, so
yeah,
if anyone has something productive that they want to make a motion for, I think we're all ears.
I was just addressed. I just want to make one final comment on this, and it is related. I just want to point out that what I said, to clarify, what I said, allowing kids to speak at our meeting allows weaponization of that. And we literally just saw it. I think it's already happened in the past, which is why I brought it up. I didn't say it shouldn't be allowed. I didn't say anything. I said I personally didn't like it. I think there are other parents that felt the same way. I think us doing this allows that to happen more and more and more to connect the dots. And I really don't want that to happen during our controllable agenda items. It still allows them, and I particularly, if I think it encourages parents to coach kids to say and do certain things, which I think has happened in the past. But that's just my opinion and the opinion of other parents who have expressed that to me. Not provable. I don't want to see that in our council. That's why it's related. I am not disparaging anybody. I'm just saying that I could see that taking a further extreme, consciously taking a further extreme down the road. And I don't want to see that happen here. So I want to clarify that piece, and it does relate to what we're talking about. And I would like to end my time.
So point of order or point of information, I'm going to defer again to Jennifer Greenblatt. Based on the process that you described, did Ben have the authority to do, I guess, or was it within Ben's prerogative or purview as the president of the council to make the decision that he is questioning at this point? And Ben, can you specify exactly what your concern was?
Yeah, my concern was that children, that council members present resolutions, and only council members present resolutions. I can't make.
Can I just
Well,
clarify
I'll let
my
you go. Yeah, I
request?
was just asked what your hand is up next. You'll speak. I cannot make with our bylaws. I cannot make the decision to allow other people to present resolutions. They can. We've had presentations from the DOE. We've had other presentations, but this is in regards to council members. And if and initially I agreed to it, and then I realized that it was overstepping my boundary. That I can't disenfranchise council members by saying who gets to represent resolutions. Now, 100%, anyone, including students, including children, students, PS11 students, they can make comments, they can get their full 2 minutes at the public speaking session, which happens pretty quickly right after a resolution is presented. So this would be at the top of the hour or the top of the agenda, I absolutely would give priority to students to speak during a public speaking session. But the question here was whether they get to present the resolutions, and I believe it's not my authority to grant that. I think that's within the authority of the council to decide, not myself. Robin Broshi, yeah.
Yeah, so let me clarify, because my intent wasn't so first of all, let's stipulate that I hope to God this is not a controversial resolution. This was a request from the principal for the students to talk about, to get to like showcase their process, how it was, how they selected how they did the vote, they researched different people. They just want to have an opportunity to showcase the work that they did. To be honest, Kelly, I'm sorry to put you on the spot. Frankly, I think it could be part of the superintendent's report as how, the same way that, he's had teachers present. It's just a showcase to model the way kids went through this process that's pretty unique and special. How a model of how a school empowered students to make a decision. It's not about presenting the resolution itself. It's a request from the principal of the school to give the students an opportunity to showcase the work they did. Putting it in the agenda as opposed to burying it in the superintendent's report is it's just a nice recognition to the student leaders that did this work. Okay? And it puts them at the beginning so they don't have to sit through all the other stuff that happens before they get to the superintendent's report. I don't mean to drag Kelly into the middle of this. I'm not going to say he should now fold it into his report. I'm just saying there's a lot of ways we could, frankly, if it was up to me, every month, we'd be showcasing students presenting something that they did at school to kind of keep us grounded and remind us. And it doesn't have to be about any of our resolutions. It just happens to be the resolution. This resolution is what, sort of triggered the request. So maybe if we reframe it as like, as a CEC, do we give students an opportunity to showcase some of the work we did at school and we make judicious decisions about it? Maybe that's how it's framed, or maybe we just say no, and that's fine. To Jennifer's clarification, my reading of the regs is that the CEC is required, that the name change has to be presented to the CEC. We need to vote on it, but our vote is non-binding and it just needs to be disclosed to the chancellor, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't actually matter whether we vote to approve or not approve, but we do actually have to vote, is my understanding. It doesn't just have to be presented, but that's separate from whether we give students the opportunity to showcase some work that they've done at school, that in this case happens to tie in to a resolution that's being presented. If we don't want to do that because it takes up too much time, even though it would be less than giving all the students that participated in this process 2 minutes to speak in their public session, that's fine.
Chen, you have your hand raised. Is that it, Robin? Yes. Chen, you have your hand raised.
Time is up anyway. So I'm not opposed to having like guest speakers. But after hearing, I've been silent. I've been listening to both sides of the argument, just listening. I'm not opposed to having guest speakers. And also want to clarify, are we making a decision today? Is this a resolution that's being brought up for a resolution to be presented? Is that what it is? So that's my question. You can answer later after I speak. But I look at it as I think there's a term called Mott and Bailey fallacy argument, which is there's an argument being made that, oh, we're only letting kids speak. Don't you like to have kids speak? So that's the really easily agreeable position. But what are the kids speaking about? They're speaking about a resolution that will have a yes or no vote, approve or not approve, or abstain. So it's actually a partisan or a kind of speech of appeal on one side. So that's the controversial part. That's the less defensible position. But then if we disagree with having the kids speak about making an appeal for their cause that we may see opposition from the voting and the resolution process, if council members are seen as opposing kids speaking because it's siding on one side of an issue, then we're being accused. And what Council Member Broshi had just said in the way she presented it, she meant to weaponize that and accuse us of being against children and against families. Well, we passed a resolution that supported parents and families' rights for speech, that they all have a right to speak and criticize the council. So we're above that because we passed a resolution in full support of free speech on the parents' rights and the families' rights for free speech at our council. And so therefore, we do have a place for partisan appeals about which side of the resolution you want to have support on. It's called the public speaking part, where the public, parents, families, children can come and speak on behalf of their point of view on that resolution. And that's what that's meant for. Not to kind of say, oh, if you give a special time for one side of the argument, because you're not getting another side, equal time for the other side of the argument. Maybe there won't be, or maybe there will be, maybe because a council member supports a position or resolution, we're bringing all the children to speak for. So I really oppose this idea. Thank you.
All right, unless any other council member that hasn't spoken, like to make a comment. Robin Broshi, are you making a motion at this point on what you're requesting so we can come to a decision?
Nope, I have no motion.
Can we ask Jennifer Greenblatt, because I'm still confused. I don't think this question's been answered, and it's been asked by several council members about the fact that you as the chair, the president, you do have the ability to create the agenda and add presentations as you see fit. Why in this case did it become a non-unilateral, which I can appreciate because you've made plenty of decisions in the past unilaterally. So I appreciate the fact that you're bringing to the council, but why with this particular agenda presentation as opposed to other items? And will this be precedent for any agenda item that we may want to bring forth in the future? But Jennifer, I would like to hear if he, as the chair, isn't he able to create the agenda? He replied immediately to the email saying, yes, of course, provide me all these things from the kids. And then many hours later, I don't know if it was after you speaking to someone on the council that disagreed, you took it back and said, oh, now I have to discuss this with the council. So I would like to know if Ben is able to do that. And if not, if this is how we're going to have to proceed going forward.
Are you done, Lupe? Or I'd like to, before Jennifer Greenblatt responds, I'd just like to say, it's not about an agenda item. It's about our supersede council members and have others present resolutions, do resolution presentations. And then I realized about an hour or no more than 2 hours later that that was not something I could unilaterally decide. And what is your view on that, Jennifer Greenblatt? I would appreciate that too. You're muted. Sorry.
Sorry. The bylaws say that the president shall, with the assistance of the administrative assistant, prepare the agenda for circulation together with the notice of calendar meeting. The president or anybody can have a conversation with the CEC to determine what they want to do. So you can put it together, but if you want the opinions of your council to make sure that you're doing something, especially if you feel like it's changing policy or what was done previously, you certainly have the right to do that. Len?
The bylaws do speak to, I think it's a separate section about a presentation of resolutions.
Yeah, but
I'm not talking about I'm not talking about a resolution here. I'm just talking about the agenda.
Yeah, the agenda, that I
We
understand.
discussed this whole thing already. We actually went through these specific provisions, correct? So, and I agree with what Jennifer said. And I think this is a specific issue about whether or not, you know, what you're bringing up to us. And I think that's why we're not, we're not of one opinion on this issue. And it's not because we're anti-children. It's not because we're anti-free speech. It's because there are legitimate concerns there.
Right, resolutions according to your bylaws are not made by anybody other than council members.
Yes.
They're not made by, and I do applaud these students for doing what they did. And I think it is a great civics lesson, but they can't actually bring the resolution forward.
Right, but this is not about them bringing it forward. This is about letting them do a presentation. We can let we could let my mom come and do a presentation if 6 of us wanted to hear my mother. You don't.
Janie, you've had your hand raised.
Yeah, let me just. So I think Robin Broshi's idea about putting it in the section not related to resolutions. Again, this goes back to wrapping it up with, the superintendent's discussion might be a good way to do it. I don't know, Kelly, if you have any specific thoughts in terms of pros and cons, because there has to be a mechanism, a threshold mechanism. And I do think that a threshold mechanism of what's appropriate and what's not appropriate, to have it put through a vote of the council every single time would open the floodgates. Whereas I think, Kelly, your discussions typically are very big picture. They're not, they're more, they're big ideas. I do think that they're less specific to technicalities. So I'm wondering if that is a good solution. If not, then we have to go back to the drawing board. I just think we're going to go in circles talking about where we're going to have these children speak. I think we're all in agreement that the children should have time. The question is, where is the most appropriate time, and how do we do it in such a way that we do not open ourselves up to a precedent that we are going to regret in the future?
Robin?
All right, I will be very quick. I think Robin Broshi and whomever else was on this email, this was an important discussion that should not have gone directly to Ben, but should have gone to the whole council. That's part of open meeting. And I think we've discussed it. And at this point, I make a motion to move on or to vote. I guess that's not a motion. So I make a motion to vote upon whether or not we want to allow other people to present resolutions. And that's a yes or no, because if it is the new precedent that we have, then I'm going to say yes to people who are asking about sibling priority. And I'm going to allow siblings to speak about wanting to be together. And I'd like to vote upon it now. So that's my motion, to take a vote as to whether or not we are going to allow others to present resolutions or not.
Point of order, only resolutions can only be presented according to your bylaws by council members. And if anybody wants to speak to a resolution, and we've done this for years, students have always come if there's a resolution that they're passionate about, and they speak during the public session. In fact, they could wind up having more time in a public session than they would if you allocated time to them.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, for clarifying that. I make a motion to follow the bylaws and move forward right now.
Is there a second?
No,
Second.
I'm just point of information. I don't understand what that motion is. So what?
Motion is to agree to follow our bylaws and to stop this conversation and move forward.
But that's
Like
not.
the motion to stop the conversation. We're always following our bylaws.
Yeah, that's not.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't understand.
the bylaws say that we cannot allow others to present.
So just make a motion to end the conversation. We always follow the bylaws.
You can speak when I'm finished, but right now it's my turn. My timer's still going. So I make a motion to move on. And regarding the bylaws, I make a motion that we respect the bylaws and not ask for changes.
Okay, point of order. I don't think
The motion is to move on.
Point of order is parliamentarian. I don't think you can make a motion to respect the bylaws. Number two.
Okay, I asked to respect the bylaws, and my motion is to move on.
Robin, yeah, no, I think you're making a motion to table.
I second Robin's motion to move on.
You don't even need a motion, Ben.
Yeah, Ben, just move us
Just say we're
on.
moving on. This discussion has gone on long enough.
All right. Yes, I agree. All right. Thank you. Let's move on. All right. The next item was discussion regarding the chat function. I know this was Kush and Robin Kelleher's had brought that up previously. Do you want to discuss this at this time?
Sure, I'd love to discuss this. I would like to bring back the chat function. I know many disagree. Welcome to that. I would like parents to feel that they can engage and be heard throughout the entirety of the meeting. And I ran on that platform, so I'm going to continue to advocate for that. And I also want to point out that Kaushik and I led a admission and diversity meeting, and we had at one point about 300 people. And as people came and went throughout the meeting, it went up to about 400 or 500 people. And we had the chat function open the entire time, and it worked out well, even though there were people who felt differently on different items.
Can I go add on and share screen?
Yes, please.
For a moment. Just because it was asked, this is not as eloquent or as long as the as what we had for. Can people see that? Oh, my screen just went weird. Can people see that? I'm getting it not responding. Okay.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah. just to clarify, it's not as long as the letter writing guidelines, but basically, yeah, just to speak to Robin's 5 points that Robin made, or I'm adding a 5th point. One, mostly free speech. I agree. I ran, like her, I ran on a platform to bring this back. Most CECs have open chat, including but not limited to our neighboring CECs of CECD1 and D3, and they allow chats in any direction. Actually, we can discuss whether or not we actually want that piece of it. As Robin pointed out, our diversity admissions committee had the largest CEC D2 meeting to date with open chat with no issues. For parent engagement, parents sit through these long meetings. They, of course, they have the opportunity to speak, but not all parents are comfortable speaking publicly, much less in a recorded meeting. The chat provides these parents for opportunity for engagement and maybe pathway to speaking down the road. That's how I got started, actually. Whether you guys like it or not. And in the meantime, while these meetings are running long, they should be allowed to share their ideas. I think there, in response to some feedback that we've had during previous sessions discussing this, perhaps we could shut off the chat during the parent public speaking sessions, which would also include students speaking during that time. And perhaps that could be a reasonable compromise so that you don't have an additional meeting, so parents don't actually get to talk about other parents as they are speaking and distracting them. But we as council members should be ready to take that heat and be able to deal with it.
Thank you, Kush. Len, I believe your hand is up first.
Yes, yeah, I agree. I think we should bring back the chat, certainly on we can do it on an experimental basis. I do think there should be a rule that we follow the same rules that we would if we were in a public forum. And when I say that, I mean, I don't believe that council members should respond to specific chats or to specific arguments that are made. I mean, providing information is one thing, but being argumentative or arguing with members of the public or saying that people are crazy or that I take issue with. I think we can bring it back. I think we can do it in a respectful manner. I think that if someone uses any offensive language, we can just bounce them. But I agree with everything that's been said, and I think it really will go a long way to making people more interested and connected to our meetings. And really, as an informational tool, I find the chat extremely helpful. It comes up in our President's Council meetings. We're constantly posting information and links and things that are very helpful to our members. So I am 100% in favor of
that. Daniela, you're next.
Yes, I am also in favor of it. I think it will make people feel more connected. Our meetings are too long, people complain they are too long, and they can share. I totally agree with Len that it should be in a experimental phase, and that we should have very clear rules about what would trigger for somebody to be kicked out of the chat or of the meeting. And I also agree that we should not respond directly to whatever's being said, if it is in terms of insults or accusations. Yeah, but I will definitely vote for it.
Are there any other comments? Ushma, yes.
I think I know I'm going to lose this battle. I don't think chat is worthwhile, but if we are going to bring it back, I think Daniela brings up a good point, and I would like us to only move forward with chat after these things have been delineated. Who's monitoring it? What's the threshold for kicking someone out? Any of the various options. Can people chat to everyone broadly? Can they just chat to the people on the council? Are council members allowed to engage? All of those different things. And I think Daniela brings up a good point. If we're going to do this, there should probably be some guardrails put into place before it is done.
Thank you, Ushma. Chen, you're next.
Yeah, I agree in the principle. I think there's guardrails we should put in and I agree with what Ushma said and what Leonard's and Danielle said, we should
We
set the
lost,
ground rules properly. Can you hear me? Set the ground rules properly. Look at various functions, such as when there's public speaking, turn it off. Maybe not allowing point-to-point chatting, but just to everyone or to council members or something of that nature, so that people don't go into arguments on their own, back and forth, so that it's all visible. So I think that, and then transparent, so we can record what's been chatted as well. So that's my take, but I do agree in principle with having that chat as an additional medium for our public and families and parents to communicate.
JD, your hand is raised.
Yeah, so, I agree with the chat function. My big concern is what Ushma pointed out, is that who is going to be in charge of monitoring, or said more negatively, censoring people's discussions? Because it's one of these things where, you can go in it with the right mindset, but whoever gets kicked off, they can claim, well, you kicked them off for XYZ reason. And, I just think it's going to open up the council to something that's very dangerous and something that we can't defend ourselves. Just given the nature of some, you just need this to happen once in a very big way. I think it's going to have a very bad negative impact on this council. And it's not a no, I'm trying to figure out how we can have rules of engagements, agreed upon procedures that is very clear, such that if we kick somebody off, we can use it as our defense that you were kicked off because X, Y, and Z, as opposed to if they say, I was kicked off because, you didn't like the color of my shirt.
Can I ask one question without invoking a 3-minute timer? It's why are people so terrified of this when other councils have this up and running and it's not an issue for them? And it wasn't an issue at our largest meeting to date. Why are we so terrified of this when it happened basically once 10 months ago?
All right. JD, did you want to respond, or then we move to Ushman and Lund?
My response is simple. We are District 2. We have very, very vocal and very diverse parents. I think the Zoom that you hosted with Robin Kelleher was wonderful. I do think that there were more like-minded parents versus not like-minded. It wasn't a 50-50 split. So I think the dialogue, there was a kind of self-management aspect of it, so I think it's not it's clearly not an exact science. It's just that, I would rather, walk very slowly before we run, because this could open up a really big can of worms.
Ushma, yes.
I'll just say ditto on everything Janie just said. And in addition, in the last term, when things were just as polarized as they are right now, our public was not kind. And it invited, if we are inviting public commentary from all the different parts of District 2, we have to be willing to hear all of that commentary. And it is not all kind. So I think when you are in large groups of like-minded people, people do behave themselves. But here we tend to voice opinions across the spectrum, which triggers people to voice their own concerns.
Len?
Well, the only thing I would say in response to the last couple of comments are, Ben, Ushma, and I, we were there. I'll just say that I would like to think things are a lot more civil now than they were. There were a lot of very unique issues at the time. There were literally political things that were going on. There was In other words, there were a lot of things and a lot of issues that certainly I think were hot button issues. I'm not saying they're any less polarizing now, but I tend to think that people will be a lot more respectful. And again, we're only saying on a temporary basis. But I can't imagine it could possibly be anywhere near as incendiary or as offensive as some of the things that we had to deal with during our last council. So I'm optimistic that the next experiment will go a lot smoother and a lot better, and certainly be a lot less controversial and a lot more respectful than it has been in the past.
Lupe, your hand is raised. You're next.
I think Janie and Ushma said it perfectly, but I would like to stress that I think the harm that was implied in the chat, both last term, as well as some of the other councils, CEC's chat that I've attended, I've seen council members even write some horrendous things in these chats, and these are other people's CEC's chats. So I'm a little hesitant in expecting everyone to be on their best behavior. Unfortunately, I think this term we have just as polarizing and controversial topics that are being discussed, and I would like to hold our constituents, and you expect everyone to act in at least a cordial manner, and unfortunately, history, even as of recently, has not shown that.
Thank you, Daniela. Yes. Your hand is raised.
I'll try to be very quick because I know it's my second time speaking, but I'm not terrified of the chat, but I'm terrified of how families lost trust on DOE and in our public schools, particularly in this pandemic, and how so many families are leaving New York and are leaving our district. And I don't want to do anything that creates more distrust. And so I think that is my concern. So I want to do this because I think it's going to increase engagement, but I want to make sure that we do it right. And so I think my suggestion is for us to let's figure out a solution, as Jenny said, like who's going to monitor and what is some very basic rules, right, of why somebody would be kicked off. And I just want to say one thing that I think Jenny said, the diversity committee, I agree, was not 50-50. I also don't think that our community is actually 50-50. So I think the chat's going to show, I think we do have minority voices that can be very loud, but I actually think that the chat is going to show, the majority of people who attend the meeting and don't feel comfortable speaking will show their opinions on the chat.
All right, thank you, Daniela. Robin Kelleher, please.
Yes,
next.
thank you. I agree that there are always risks with any decision we make, and there are always two sides. But I think the risks of us getting negative press for kicking someone off who's being inappropriate are way less than the reward we get of re-engaging families who have spent 2 years not feeling heard. And I think that we owe it to the people who put us here to hear their voices and to let them express themselves. I think I agree we should not allow chat to be on during public sessions. We should have strict rules like no bad words, no name calling, and I think it's pretty, I guess to me, it would be the equivalent of the respect that we command here when speaking to one another. And when a council member starts to act inappropriately, it's very obvious to the rest of us, and that person is usually called out. So I think it is obvious, and I think that we can amongst ourselves agree to remove someone. And I think if that person has done something egregious, it will be obvious, and the meetings are recorded. So I'm less concerned about the bad press. Bad press happens all the time. I mean, people don't like something we say on here and they tweet about it. So it's there's a way to share information, no matter how it is is done. It's out there. There are other ways of social media dispersing rude, mean, negative attacks. But I think the chat is actually going to be beneficial and invites more good than harm. And I agree with what Danielle has said. I think we need to really, we're responsible for District 2 families, and we need to keep them here, and we need to make sure that they feel engaged. Like, our participation has drastically decreased almost at each meeting. So I'm hoping that if we bring back chat, we can get people to come back. And even if they can't speak in these meetings, I know, like Tunisia, she sits here through all these meetings. Like, I'm sure she'd love to say something in the chat right now. She sits through hours and hours of meetings but can't say anything, and I think it's very frustrating. And I think I would love to hear what anyone has to say, regardless of whether or not I agree upon it, because that's our job. We're supposed to hear what they have to say. Even at the working meetings, it'd be nice to hear what people have to say. And I would like us to try to wrap this up soon.
Kush, and then I'll just say a final word on this. Kush, you're muted.
Has anyone else not gotten to speak? Because I think this is my second time that wants to. I thought Chen had hand raised at one point. Yeah, I mean, first of all, yeah, I would like to wrap this up. I'm gonna have to disagree with Janie and Oshma. Yes, it wasn't 50-50, and I think that's where. But it was absolutely one of the biggest hot button issues that we have. And though it wasn't 50-50, I wouldn't say it was like 90% people who were in favor of it. It was something like 2/3, 1/3. There was a large and vocal minority that were speaking against GNT. And I actually would like to see if chat would effectively self-police, as Robin Keller just said, because that's kind of what we saw. So first of all, I'd like to see if we could. I don't want to table this again. This is actually the third time we've discussed it. I'd like to see if it can work, if we have the votes to have it pass somewhat unchecked or self-policing. I think just by virtue of shutting it off during parent speaking sessions adds a lot. And that is something you did not have at the last session. And I think that's where the problems were. And like I said, parents want to say stuff about us, we should be able to take it. And I think if a parent says something unkind that's totally out of line, other parents will be all over that parent. Let them. So people should finish talking, but I would first make a motion to see if we have the votes to let it go unchecked with the modification that that there's no chat during public speaking sessions to protect other parents and other students. We can make the further amendment that it's just to and from. They can chat freely to council members and to everyone and not to each other. That, I guess, further would protect other parents. And I want to see if that works, as is, and if we have those votes. If that doesn't work, then we can draft something. I would also recommend that we don't kick out people individually, that there are warnings and the whole chat gets shut off. And that way we don't have to worry about offending any individual parents, and we can try turning it back on. We could do 3 warnings in a meeting. And if it really gets past 3, it gets shut off.
Kush, you made a motion. Can you make it more concise
I didn't
for
make
Janie's
a motion.
benefit?
I didn't make a motion yet. I wanted to let people finish talking. I'm willing. I was just outlining what I might put in that.
I'd like to then go make a comment. In the past 2 months, in the past few months since you originally brought this up, you and Robin, I've received a number of comments from parents who were in favor of a chat or the possibility to voice their opinion during these meetings. And we have a number of families, a number of parents, number of members of the public here today, as you pointed out, Robin, and they absolutely, I feel they should deserve, they should be able to make a comment, contribute to our council. That's what we're here for, to listen, to hear parents. So I do agree with that. I do want to point out, I cannot, I won't be able to read the chat during these meetings. I will be reading them after the meetings if there is a chat function. I'm listening to speakers and I'm listening to the parents or whoever is making comments during the public speaking sessions. So it has to be also understood when you're making a comment in the chat, it may be read, it may not be read. And we also absolutely, I believe that it has to be monitored in some way, because if we're having children at these meetings, we have to remove people who are saying things that are inappropriate for a child. Maybe I'm an overprotective dad. I have 3 daughters. I'm not a politician. I'm a parent. So I think what's written in the chat should be appropriate for families. And finally, I do believe that if we don't try it for at least one meeting, then we're probably failing our constituency, because we should have the opportunity to see if we can make it work. And it doesn't have to be perfect. We can improve it, but I do think we should try to make it work for families, to give them an opportunity to speak. And you had your hand, and then yes.
So Kush, okay, the one thing that you sold me on is for the chat function to be turned off, it's all or none. So I go from being a little uncomfortable to, I think if we do an all or none, it's a little bit better, because it alleviates from singling out any single person. So I've just moved away. I'm more in your camp now, and Robin's camp.
If other people want to say something, go ahead. Otherwise, I think I've crystallized a motion. All right. I motion that we turn on chat with the following stipulations. 1, that it is turned off during the public speaking session. 2, anyone can chat to council members and to everyone, not to each other. Or I guess probably they'll end up being co-hosts and everyone. I think is reasonably sufficient. 3, seems to be some interest in monitoring. Well, I say we have a council of 3 people. One of them will be Robin or myself. One of them I might suggest Daniela, and one of them I might suggest any other volunteer. But I think I'd like to hash that out over email before the next meeting, who those 3 people are. And 3, they will, if we see unkind chats, the 3 will decide to shut it off for 5 minutes. We'll turn it back on, 10 minutes. And if it happens one more time, it's gone.
Len, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I just want to add to the motion, if I can, or I propose an amendment to the Cush's motion, which has not yet been seconded. So,
go ahead. I'm willing all ears.
Which is just that council members, it's understood that council members will not engage in arguments with in the chat with anyone.
I meant to add that, and I would agree. I'm willing to amend my motion to include that.
Janie and Ushma?
What are you looking for me to add anything?
No, you had your hand up.
Oh, sorry.
From before.
Yes, sorry.
Okay.
I
So
second.
you second, and Ushma,
Yeah, can
she had her hand up before. The
can
second.
we consider having this all written down and having us all have a chance to weigh in on what these guardrails could look like before we just move forward with doing this?
I kind of made a motion. I laid it out. It's our 3rd time talking about it. I write plenty of resolutions.
No, I don't know. I think you misunderstood her. Like, to vote on it, just have bullet points of what so we can vote on
In
it.
the chat right now?
Yeah.
Right now?
Yeah.
Did someone disable the chat? Because I know it sounds silly, but I thought someone disabled the chat.
Oh, I think it's because you know that's because you went back in and you're probably not a co-host.
Oh.
You
All right,
Jen,
it's enabled. I don't know why it was off. I'm sorry.
I'll
start. Maybe
you're gonna do it right now, or do you want to move on to the other item and then vote after?
Well, Chen has his hand up. If you can just bullet point it. Just
Akon.
all right, and Chen,
Yeah, I actually disagree with turning it off for everyone if someone if someone is misbehaving. There might be attempts by people to sabotage and it's also accountability to that person and not, punish the whole group. So I actually disagree with, I know it's tough to monitor and it may you have questions of subjectivity, but if you give enough warnings and the reasons why, but to disable for everyone is not fair. So that's my thought.
It may not be fair, but I think that's what most people are comfortable with. So what I'm gonna go with.
Oh.
And I just want to let you know.
Point of information. Oh, I got a question. Is there a distinction? I apologize because I don't know the distinction. Is there a distinction between the chat during our meeting and any live stream or YouTube? Anything that might be broadcast as well? Is there another chat for that?
yeah, there is a chat for that.
I presume we're only talking about the chats for our regular meeting.
Yeah, for the Zoom meeting.
Or live.
Yeah, Ed.
And Ben, just to let you know, you enabled the chat for everyone as of right now.
Yeah, I just realized that. Yep. Yeah.
Can you just make me a co-host tonight?
But who's not a co-host?
I don't think I'm a co-host because I think that's why I couldn't.
Okay.
And Chen as well, I believe.
All right, well, you guys stepped in and out. That's why it happened.
So I got bounced from the internet. I apologize.
Chen is in twice. One of his is not. I don't know if that's an issue or not.
All right. Thank you, Frank Smith, for the test run.
And thank you for not being offensive.
Just to clarify, Robin, you typed it up already, or
you're muted.
I wrote turning off chat during public session. And then I put my head to my bed.
But I think there's more. All right. There's
more. I was letting you do the other one while I put my son to bed. In 30 seconds.
Is there another agenda item?
Well, yeah. Well, I'll just mention that the OML extension notice, and I'm sure everyone is aware that the meetings are staying remote through the end of this term, apparently. So I will not be planning any in-person meetings unless the council decides to come up with a way to do an in-person simultaneous with a remote meeting. So if council members want to come up with the technology necessary to do that, please, send an email around and we can see if we can work that out. But for the moment, it's going to just be remote. While you're working on that, the next item is, as you see in the agenda, Aisha George did notify myself that we have a meeting with, will be a town hall meeting with Chancellor David Banks, March 8th for our March calendar meeting. The details of how the meeting will proceed haven't been given out yet. So I'm hoping to know more come our February calendar meeting. The big question will be how much time will be allotted with the Chancellor and what questions and what categories of questions we'll provide. So for our calendar meeting, I like to have the I'd like to have the officers of the council and the parliamentarian sit down and discuss potential formats as we await the rules of engagement with the chancellor for the next meeting. Since I don't have anything in detail yet, I do plan to invite the officers and the parliamentarian together to sit down and start discussing what a format for that would work with the town hall. There's two other points. The town hall is run, as my understanding, by the DOE. So we'll learn what the rules are through them. But the other question is whether to have, and I believe we did have this for our December 8th, 2020 meeting with our with Chancellor Carranza. We did have a calendar meeting directly after the town hall meeting, and that calendar meeting was run by the council, and it gave it lots of opportunity for the for our community to discuss and respond to what the chancellor had to say. And are there any questions regarding that or concerns? Okay. Shall I move on to the next item?
Yes, continue.
Okay.
I'm almost done.
All right. Are there any updates? Item 11 on the agenda on the administrative assistant hiring.
I would like to motion that we vote on if we can just hire the person that the three of us have kind of simultaneously agreed upon. And I know the last meeting, it was kind of a consensus with the council that they trusted our process. And I just think that this is something that we should move forward with and hire as soon as possible before this person is not available.
I think we agreed last meeting that you could hire this person.
So I'm motioning, can we put in, have, FACE or DOE extend the offer to this candidate?
I second.
Janie, did you have a response to this motion?
Yeah, I thought didn't you want to speak with this person before we move forward? Because I forwarded you the two resumes and indicated our preference for one of the person that Lupe is mentioning. So if you...
Lupe,
so
did you respond to Janie?
No.
I responded.
So there were two candidates, Lupe, Danielle, and myself. The one DOE person is our preferred one. The question is, do you want to chat with that person before an offer goes out, or are you going to see the decision just the three of us? Because I don't remember that.
We just trusted you guys to make the offer to the DOE person. Everyone, I think, agreed on that.
Okay, because I didn't remember that. All right.
Correct.
So just go for it.
How does this move forward? Who makes the move?
Well, Robin Kelleher seconded the motion, so we have a motion. So you want to do it by raise of hands?
Do we have to vote again?
We don't have to vote. Just put up your hands and then
hands up.
Yeah, hands up, and then we will get the process rolling.
Okay. Okay. We have enough votes here. Chen, did you want to yes or no or abstain? All right.
I had to jump off.
So that's been approved. Okay. All right. The meeting minutes update. Janie, I think we have to work on that together, and so we'll discuss this offline. Okay. The 13th item is for Chen. We have to start modifying, we have to do a modification to our council budget. I think it's due in March. So I'm hoping to meet with you about this, and we have to do a modification, then we'll vote to amend the budget after we present it to the council. I believe that again will be due in March. So if there are any council members who want to speak to that, this will be, in February, please, while we work on this, please email myself and, more importantly, Chen, who's the treasurer. Len, you had you have your hand raised?
That might have still been from voting.
Oh, okay. Anushma, you had your hand raised before?
I'll bring it up in I'll bring it up in February at the meeting. I don't need to prolong this. It's just everybody should be thinking about what we could spend that money on, and I would propose we spend it on students in temporary housing, as we have in years past.
Yeah, we spent 17,000 last year and worked hard to that modifications. Okay. Any new business for today's working business meeting?
I'm done now. Can we actually vote on this before we move
Yes,
on?
this was the 14th item, was our last item. So if there's no new business, let's vote on the motion. Do you have the in the chat, or do you want to share?
I'd rather share the screen in case we just want to modify it quickly before we vote. I guess I forgot everything. Give me 1 second. Okay, it's in blue. Tabled during public speaking session. Allowed to the co-hosts and everyone. No participant chat. Council members do not engage in arguments with participants. There'll be an overseeing committee of 3 to be determined by email who those 3 are before the next meeting. They will decide on the first bad act. There's a 5-minute cooling session. And I propose this for everyone. There seems to be some minor disagreement whether it should be singled out people or everyone. I think it should be everyone. A second bad act will result in a 10-minute cooling session, and a third strike, chat turned off for the remainder of the meeting. Did I forget anything?
Well, I would just say, is this a temporary thing for the chat?
Which the
No, are we doing it? Are we going forward with the chat on an experimental or a temporary basis and see, going forward, or is this going to be we're just going forward and then we'll adjust accordingly if we need to change anything?
I would say, how about we put this in place and discuss it at the next working business meeting?
Okay, that's fine with me.
Can we add that as number 5th point?
Said we should call it a pilot. I like that idea.
Yeah. Fine. Well, that'd be number 5. I would like to amend one more thing for number 4. Obscene language.
Yeah.
Will be as grounds for automatic removal.
And based on our past experience, you can make it nudity also.
Well, I don't know how you do that in the chat, but
I'm just teasing.
But we had that, yep.
Well, wait a minute. But I mean, but if someone accidentally says the S word, you're really gonna boot them? Somebody says BS, but it spells it out. We're gonna boot them?
Come on, let's not get so crazy.
It's really late.
Yeah.
Can we just leave it at these bad acts? I mean,
no, because I think obscenity deserves, and it has to be by the judge of the 3 moderators.
And I think
if it was said, if it was said in a manner that's completely obscene, yes, that person should be booted.
So
you should have that ability to boot someone.
All right. Well, what's the actual? All right. So hold on 1 second.
Because that person's going to keep doing that and get the 5-minute, the 10-minute, and then you turn it off. And if there's one bad actor, just remove that act.
And these rules are being posted. You have to post these rules before each meeting.
Great.
Do I have a time? Or can I be recognized?
Yes, Lupe, please.
I'm a little concerned with it just being 3, especially when I think he named the 3. Can we not all be able to monitor this? Obviously, Ben, you said you can't, but those of us that are able to monitor the chat as well, why would we be excluded?
I only thought 3 just so you had a tiebreaker.
I also think it was to protect everyone so that if someone were to say I got booted, we have a council that's in charge of booting, for lack of a better word, and they know the rules and they're clear, and it's less of a, I guess, an issue for everyone to have to defend themselves. And that was the reason.
Again, I only think that there's a good point in having one person designated, and that's because, you know, you run the risk if all of us have that possibility, people just be throwing people out just to throw people out, and we'll never know which one of us was responsible. Well, I mean, still might not technically know, but theoretically, the public would know that at least 1 or 2 people were the ones that made the decision. I don't know if that makes any sense.
I think it does.
It does, but I just think that if it's if our council has a super majority and 3 of those people are on that super majority,
I would
that are all very like-minded, then I would have a problem with that.
I was specifically saving one of those 3 spots for not the supermajority. If you'd like to be on, we can discuss that.
I would like to not be on that committee.
I don't want to be on it either.
Again,
I nominate Lupe to be on that committee.
I don't want to be on it either.
I don't want it either.
Yeah,
You might be the only one on the
Lupe,
committee.
you can be the person.
No, but this
I
is
don't
part
know
of the
what is
point.
a super majority, because I have put resolutions in this council that it was not passed. Today I voted contrary to a lot of people who, sometimes I vote. So I don't know what is the super majority that people keep.
Lupe, we decided you're the only person on the committee.
But see, this is the point. Like, if nobody wants to do this, then why are we engaging in the chat?
I'm sorry, I'll do it. I'll do it too.
Appreciate
Thanks,
that, Robin. Because if you want to defend having this, you actually then have to engage. So
I just was
Robin.
trying to make it easy for whoever wants to be on it. But I'm happy to do it. I'm happy not to do it. I just want everyone to be happy.
Yeah, same here. I'm happy to do it. I have to not do it. So if Lupe wants to be, I'm happy.
Again, this is why I was going to suggest we pick these 3 outside of this meeting. So,
Well, we have a motion here. Are we going to get a second?
I second.
All right. Janie?
Okay, we are going to vote on opening the pilot open chat functions based on the agreed upon procedures that is in the shared screen. Yay, nay, or abstain. Robin Broshi. What?
No, I'm laughing. I'm glad 5 was changed from termination to expulsion.
Okay, sorry, Robin, I didn't hear. Robin Broshi.
She left.
Oh, she left? Okay. All right, Kush?
yes.
Daniela?
Yes.
Lupe?
Abstain, but I would be on the committee if it passes.
Robin Kelleher?
Yes.
Chen Kwok, is he on? No, okay.
Yes, I'm on, yes.
Oh,
Yes.
yes, okay, excellent. Benjamin Morton?
Yes.
Ushmanio?
Nope.
Lim Fong Sim, yes. Leonard Silverman?
Yes.
Lily Wu?
Yes.
Yes. Gabriela Calabia?
Yes.
Okay, we have enough votes for the pilot open chat function to pass.
Chat function is approved for the pilot program. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Can somebody make sure to save a copy of what was just written?
It is in my CEC Google Docs.
Ushma, I wanted to say quickly, a new business. This is super quick. We spoke with Eric Botcher. I spoke with Eric Botcher the other day. and his team, and he offered, which is why I reached out to make a call about students in temporary housing and the transportation issue, and to do what he can and to report back as soon as possible. And I told him that you were head of the committee, so I'll follow up and make sure that you're included in any correspondence.
Sure. I took a call with his chief of staff as well last week and kind of gave the preparatory landscape of everything. So I think Nicole told Eric. So I didn't know you were doing that. I appreciate the 1-2 punch, and perhaps together it will be effective. So I'll follow up. Nicole actually is my neighbor. So I run into her on the street all the time. So I will follow up about all of that.
Okay,
And
great.
yes, I like the timer. I think it was effective. And if you can still continue to feel like you're being able to pay attention while also doing that, maybe if you need help unmuting and finding people, we can give you that help there. I don't know. That's my personal opinion.
Thank you,
Thanks, Ben,
Ishmael.
so much.
Yes, thank you, Janie, for.
Thanks, Janie.
All right, is there any other new business? No. All right, well, thank you.
How long is the pilot to run for? How, do we set a time period? And then
We were going to
review?
discuss it during the business meeting next, after the council meeting, after the calendar meeting.
Oh,
Can we please try to have calendar and working business meeting together? We are like
Yes.
coy. We expand to the size of our pool. We've been on here for 3 hours. If we had just done this after the last calendar meeting, we probably would have been done in like 90 minutes. So
Yeah, and
please, can we
following up, if we were
try?
live, we also would have finished somehow a lot quicker.
But you know what? We also going over a lot of items, and trying to become less transparent. I mean, become more transparent, less opaque. It's a late night, and I think we're setting precedents for future councils, to improve upon, and I hope
would
so.
say, Ben, you're very thorough, and that's a good thing.
Oh, thank you, and I
mean,
thank you, everybody, and thank you for our remaining 4 or 5.
Good night.
The public, and thank you to all those who are watching on YouTube. Have a good night,
Thanks,
everybody.
Smith.
I would like to thank Ben and Jamie. I know they do a lot of hard work.
Thanks, Jamie. Bye, Craig.
Bye, thank
Bye,
you.
Tunisia. Thanks for staying.
Bye, Anna.
Bye, everyone. Bye, Jennifer.
Bye, Jennifer.
Oh, bye, Frank Smith.
Bye,
Bye.
good
Oh,
night.
we got a wave. Yeah.
Have a
Bye,
good
bye.
And
one.
Jose. Bye, Jose.
Bye, Anna.
And
Good night.
Darlene.
Bye, Darlene.
And Milena.
I
Hope
see
I pronounced every word.
Bye.
and Robin.
Say Mr. Rogers.
Oh, I gotta turn off the
Actually
recording.
from Magic Garden, but yes, a lot of people use